Tonight, we're breaking down the full history of every mythical Pokémon, tracing a path from the very first whispers of Mew to the cosmic awakening of Arceus and beyond. There are some interesting details to follow, but I'll keep everything gentle enough for sleep. Thank you to those of you who've been joining us consistently. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here, and if this is your first night, just comment night 1. Now back to the video. To understand the mythical Pokémon is to understand the boundary between what is known and what is believed. In the world of Pokémon, there is a distinct line that separates the legendary from the mythical. We often speak of legendary creatures as the titans of the earth, the masters of the sea, and the rulers of the sky. These are beings that are woven into the very geography of the regions we explore. They sit atop frozen peaks, sleep within the hearts of volcanoes, or wait patiently in the depths of ancient ruins for a worthy challenger. They are tangible, they are part of the world's map, but the mythical Pokémon are different. They do not wait for you in the tall grass, and they do not appear at the end of a long journey through a dark cave. They are the ghosts in the machine. They are the anomalies that exist outside the standard boundaries of space and time. To find a mythical Pokémon is not a matter of skill or exploration, but a matter of fate. A matter of being in the right place at the right time during a specific moment in history. For nearly 30 years, these 23 entities have defined the mystery of the series. They are the subjects of playground rumors that turned into digital folklore. They represent the abstract concepts that govern our reality, from the flow of time and the vastness of space to the weight of human fear and the spark of victory. Some were born in the cold vacuum of the cosmos, while others were forged in the fires of human ambition, built from gears and code in an attempt to replicate the divine. Tonight, we are going to look at each of them, not just as entries in a Pokédex, but as the pillars of a grand, interconnected mythology. Imagine, if you will, a time before the universe had a name, before the stars were hung in the sky, and before the first breath was drawn. In this period of absolute silence, there was only a void, a swirling chaos of nothingness, that stretched on forever. From this void, an egg appeared. This was not an egg made of shell and yolk, but an egg of pure potential. When it hatched, the first consciousness entered the world. This was Arceus, the alpha Pokémon, the original one. It is said that Arceus shaped the universe with its 1,000 arms, a metaphor for a power so vast that it cannot be comprehended by the human mind. Arceus did not just create the world. It created the laws that allow the world to function. It birthed the concepts of time and space, giving them form in the shapes of Dialga and Palkia. It created the shadow of the world, the antimatter, and gave it to Giratina. But even a creator needs balance. To ensure that the world would not just be a cold, mechanical clockwork of physics, Arceus created the heart and the mind. It created the guardians of the lakes to bring emotion, knowledge, and willpower to the living things that would eventually inhabit the earth. This was the beginning of the mythical lineage. From that point on, the history of the Pokémon world became a tapestry of extraordinary events. The arrival of Jirachi, a being born from the stars that only awakens for 7 days every 1,000 years, a creature that embodies the very concept of a wish. The emergence of Deoxys, an alien life form transformed by the violent energies of space, a reminder that the world of Pokémon is not limited to a single planet. As we move through the generations, the nature of these myths begins to change. We move away from the purely divine and into the realm of the natural and the artificial. We encounter Celebi, the green guardian of the forest who moves through the corridors of time as easily as we walk through a door. We meet Manaphy, the prince of the sea, born in the cold depths of the ocean to protect the balance of the tides. And then, the darker side of the mythos, Darkrai, a creature born from the nightmares of humanity, not out of malice, but because it is the shadow that must exist where there is light. Perhaps the most fascinating turn in this history is the role of humanity. As the centuries passed, people stopped simply worshipping the myths and began trying to create them. This in Genesect, a prehistoric hunter brought back to life and augmented with cold, hard steel by Team Plasma. It in Magearna, a mechanical soul encased in a clockwork body, built 500 years ago by a scientist who wanted to create life from nothing. These are the artificial myths, the ones that bridge the gap between the ancient past and the technological future. Throughout this journey, one name remains the most iconic, the most mysterious, and the most foundational: Mew. If Arceus is the father of the universe, Mew is the mother of all life. Within its tiny pink frame lies the genetic code of every Pokémon that has ever existed, and every Pokémon that ever will. Mew is the ancestor, the source, the beginning of the biological story. It is the ultimate elusive prize, a creature that can transform into anything, yet chooses to remain hidden from the eyes of the world. The story of Mew is the story of how a single rumor about a truck in a harbor could ignite the imaginations of millions of children across the globe, turning a simple video game into a lifelong obsession with the unknown. Tonight, we are going to step through the veil. We are going to look at the Genesis myth in its entirety. We will examine the Eight Firstborns, the guardians of the elements, and the spirits of war and peace. We will explore how the expansion of space by Palkia led to the creation of alien life, and how the dreams of humans gave birth to the shadows that haunt the night. We will see how a simple metal nut in a mobile game evolved into a titan of industry, and how a poisonous peach in the land of Kitakami became the latest chapter in this unfolding epic. This is not just a list of statistics or a guide on how to complete a collection. This is a deep dive into the soul of a franchise that has spent 3 decades building a pantheon of gods and monsters. It is a story about the power of belief, the wonder of discovery, and the enduring mystery of what lies just beyond the reach of our tall grass. Whether you are a veteran trainer who remembers the first distribution events of the late 90s, or a newcomer who just encountered your first mythical in the modern era, there is a place for you here in this narrative. The history of Mythical Pokémon is a history of the impossible becoming possible. It is the story of how a group of developers in Japan created a digital mystery that felt more real than the world outside our windows. It is about the thrill of the mystery gift, the excitement of the event, and the feeling of holding something in your hands that only a handful of people in the entire world possess. It is a celebration of the rare, the unique, and the divine. So settle in, let the world outside fade away. We are going back to the very beginning, to the moment the egg hatched in the center of nothingness. We are going to witness the birth of time, the shaping of the continents, and the arrival of the first ancestors. We will follow the trail of shooting stars and time-traveling spirits. We will uncover the secrets of the laboratories and the ancient shrines. From the hidden depths of the jungle to the furthest reaches of the cosmos, this is the full, comprehensive history of every mythical Pokémon ever discovered. The journey is long, the lore is deep, and the mysteries are many. But together, we will uncover the truth behind the myths. When we think about the very first generation of Pokémon, we think of a world that was still being defined. In those early days of the mid-90s, the internet was not the all-encompassing resource it is today. Information traveled through magazines, through word of mouth, and through the frantic energy of the school playground. It was in this environment that the legend of Mew was born. Mew was never intended to be part of the original game's accessible roster. It was a secret, a piece of data tucked away in the final moments of development by a single programmer who wanted to leave a little bit of magic in the code. Because it wasn't officially announced, it became the ultimate urban legend. People spoke of hidden keys, of secret paths, and most famously, of a lone truck parked in the Vermilion City harbor. They said if you could just find a way to move that truck, Mew would be waiting underneath. Of course, the truck was empty, but the myth was real. The myth was so powerful that it forced the creators to acknowledge it, leading to the very first official distribution events. This established the blueprint for everything that would follow. A mythical Pokémon was not something you found, it was something that found you. It was a gift from the creators to the players, a reward for being part of the community. This sense of exclusivity created a bond between the player and the creature. When you held a Mew in your party, you weren't just holding a powerful psychic type, you were holding a piece of history. You were holding the genetic ancestor of the entire world. This concept of the ancestor is vital to the lore. If Mew contains the DNA of all Pokémon, It suggests that the diversity of the world is not a series of accidents, but a grand unfolding of a single design. It makes the world feel connected. It means that the common Pidgey in the sky and the mighty Charizard in the mountains are cousins, linked by the pink, playful spirit that hides in the shadows of South America. Mew is the bridge between the mundane and the miraculous. As we moved into the second generation, the mythology expanded from biology to the fabric of reality itself. We were introduced to Celebi, the voice of the forest. If Mew represented the past through genetics, Celebi represented the past, present, and future through time travel. Celebi is a creature of peace, a guardian that only appears in times of tranquility. Its presence in the Ilex forest of Johto turned a simple patch of trees into a sacred site. The idea that a Pokémon could drift through the centuries, healing the land and ensuring the survival of nature, added a layer of environmental spirituality to the world. Celebi wasn't a god of destruction or power, it was a god of persistence. It reminded us that the world of Pokémon has a history that stretches back thousands of years and a future that we must protect. Then came the third generation, and with it, a shift toward the cosmic. The Hoenn region brought us Jirachi and Deoxys. Jirachi is perhaps one of the most poetic creations in the entire series, a Pokémon that sleeps for 1,000 years, only to wake up for a single week when a pure-hearted person sings to it. It is the physical manifestation of a shooting star, a creature that can grant any wish written on the tags on its head. Jirachi connects the earth to the heavens, suggesting that the stars above are not just distant lights, but sources of life and wonder. In stark contrast to the gentle, wish-granting Jirachi, we have Deoxys. Deoxys is our first true encounter with the extraterrestrial. It didn't emerge from an egg or a forest. It was a virus on a space rock that was mutated by a laser beam. It is an alien in every sense of the word, with a body that can shift its shape to adapt to any situation. Deoxys represents the unknown dangers of the universe, the things that exist beyond the atmosphere of our planet. It challenged our understanding of what a Pokémon could be. If a virus from space could become a Pokémon, then the possibilities for life were infinite. But all of these stories, as grand as they were, felt like fragments of a larger puzzle. It wasn't until the fourth generation, in the Sinnoh region, that the puzzle finally came together. This was the era of the Genesis myth. This was when we were introduced to the architect of it all, Arceus. To speak of Arceus is to speak of the beginning of all things. It is the center point of the entire Pokémon cosmology. Legend tells us that Arceus emerged from a void of chaos and used its power to bring order to the universe. It didn't just create Pokémon, it created the dimensions they inhabit. When Arceus created Dialga and Palkia, it gave the universe its structure. Time began to flow, and space began to expand. Without these two, the world would be a static, unchanging point. But with them, the universe became a vast, breathing entity. And then there was Giratina, the ruler of the Distortion world. Giratina is often misunderstood as a figure of evil, but in the grand design of Arceus, it represents the necessary balance of antimatter. It is the shadow that allows the light to be seen. It is the stability of the void. In this same era, we met the guardians of the human spirit. Uxie, Mesprit, and Azoth were created by Arceus to give humanity the tools it needed to thrive. Knowledge to understand the world, emotion to feel it, and willpower to change it. This move by Arceus shows a creator that is deeply invested in the development of sentient life. It wasn't enough to just build a world of stone and water, it had to be a world of thought and feeling. But the Sinnoh region also gave us myths that were more grounded in the earthly experience. We met Manaphy and its offspring, Phione, the guardians of the vast oceans. We met Shaymin, the gratitude Pokémon, who can turn a barren wasteland into a field of blooming flowers in an instant. Shaymin is a reminder that even in a world of gods and aliens, there is a place for the small, the soft, and the beautiful. It represents the healing power of nature and the importance of thankfulness. And then there is Darkrai. Darkrai is one of the most complex mythical Pokémon ever conceived. It inhabits the world of nightmares, causing terrifying visions for anyone who comes near it. but the lore tells us that Darkrai does this unintentionally. It is a lonely creature, cursed by its own nature to be a pariah. It doesn't want to cause pain, it simply exists in a frequency that is incompatible with human peace. Darkrai is the personification of our fears, the things that go bump in the night, and yet it is also a figure of profound tragedy. It is the guardian of the dark, just as Cresselia is the guardian of the light. As we moved into the 5th generation, the Unova region, the tone shifted again. We moved away from the ancient myths and toward the concepts that drive human society. We met Victini, the Pokémon of victory. It is said that a trainer with a Victini can never lose, regardless of the odds. Victini represents the spark of ambition, the drive to succeed that exists within every living thing. It is a creature of pure energy, a living battery that powers the dreams of those around it. In Unova, we also encountered the Swords of Justice, led by the mythical is a story of growth and mentorship. It is a young Pokémon that must learn to master its own power to become a protector of the weak. Its 2 forms, ordinary and resolute, represent the journey from a student to a master. It is a myth about character and the weight of responsibility. Then came Meloetta, the singer, who uses the power of music to control the emotions of those who hear it. Meloetta represents the cultural side of the Pokémon world, the arts and the beauty that humans and Pokémon create together. Its ability to switch between its aria and pirouette forms shows the duality of performance, the grace of song, and the power of dance. But perhaps the most significant mythical of the 5th generation was Genesect. Genesect is a turning point in the history of the series because it is a myth that was reclaimed and altered by human hands. It was originally a powerful hunter from 300 million years ago, but Team Plasma took its ancient remains and fused them with modern weaponry. Genesect is a cyborg, a creature of flesh and chrome. It is a warning about the dangers of playing God, a reminder that some things are meant to stay in the past. The 6th generation continued this theme of human interaction with the divine. We were introduced to Diancie, a sudden mutation of the common Pokémon Carbink. Diancie is a princess of diamonds, a creature of immense beauty and value. It represents the idea that even the most ordinary things can become extraordinary under the right conditions. It is a myth of transformation. Then there was Hooper, the mischief Pokémon, who can warp space with its golden rings. Hooper is a creature of immense greed and power, capable of summoning legendary Pokémon from across time and space, just to show off. Its unbound form is a terrifying display of what happens when power is left unchecked. Hooper is a trickster god, a reminder that the mythical world is not always benevolent. And finally, we met Volcanion, the only Pokémon to share the types of fire and water. Volcanion uses steam to power its incredible strength, living in the remote mountains where humans cannot reach it. It is a creature of pure physical force, representing the raw power of the Earth's internal heat and the ocean's depth. As we moved to the Alola region in the 7th generation, the myths became more integrated with the history of the land. We met Magearna, the first mythical Pokémon to be entirely man-made. Built 500 years ago for a princess, Magearna is a clockwork marvel with a heart made of living energy called the Soul-Heart. It is a testament to the ingenuity of the past, a bridge between the ancient world and the dawn of technology. We also encountered Marshadow, the dweller in the shadows. Marshadow is a silent observer, a creature that mimics the movements and powers of others. It is born from the spirits of those who have passed away, a guardian of the transition between life and death. It is a myth of legacy, of the things we leave behind. And then there was Zeraora, the lightning that strikes from the jungle. Zeraora is a creature of pure speed and electricity, a guardian of the wild places that remain untouched by human civilization. It represents the untamable power of the weather and the fierce independence of the natural world. The 7th generation also gave us one of the most unique myths in the history of the franchise, Meltan and Melmetal. Meltan is a liquid metal Pokémon that was first discovered not in a traditional game, but in the real world through Pokémon Go. It is the only mythical Pokémon that can evolve, turning from a small, curious nut into a massive, powerful titan of iron. Melmetal is a myth for the modern age. a creature that exists across different platforms and different ways of playing. It represents the evolution of the franchise itself. In the 8th generation, we traveled to the Galar region and met Zarude, the rogue monkey of the jungle. Zarude is a creature of community and ferocity. It lives in a pack, protecting its territory with vines and raw strength. The story of Zarude is a story of parenthood and belonging, as seen in the tale of a lone Zarude who leaves its pack to raise a human child. It is a myth about the bonds that transcend species. Finally, we arrive at the 9th generation, the Paldea region and the land of Kitakami. Here, we encounter Pecharunt, the newest addition to the mythical pantheon. Pecharunt is a creature of poison and manipulation, a small entity that can control the minds of others through its toxic chains. It is a myth of corruption and influence, a dark reflection of the social bonds that hold us together. Pecharunt shows us that even now, after 9 generations and 30 years, the world of Pokémon still has secrets to reveal, and those secrets are not always kind. This is the scope of the journey we are about to take. We are going to look at the 23 myths that define this world. We will see how they interact with one another, how they shape the history of the regions we love, and how they continue to haunt our imaginations. From the first egg of Arceus to the poisonous peach of Pecharunt, this is the full history of the mythical Pokémon. It is a story of creation, of evolution, and of the enduring power of the unknown. So, take a deep breath, find a comfortable place to rest, and let us begin the story of the gods and monsters that live just out of sight. Tonight, we begin with a definition that has confounded trainers for over 25 years. What exactly makes a Pokémon a myth? The answer is deceptively simple, yet it carries the weight of an entire culture built around scarcity and secrecy. Unlike the legendary Pokémon that can be encountered at the end of a cave, atop a tower, or in the depths of the ocean, mythical Pokémon were never meant to be found in the wild. They exist entirely outside the standard progression of the Pokédex. They are the whispers, the rumors, the events you had to be there for. And to understand them, we have to go back to the very beginning. In the world of Pokémon, the word legendary is a broad umbrella. It covers the box art titans like Mewtwo, the weatherbringers like Groudon, and the cosmic architects like Dialga. But within that category, there is a smaller, more exclusive subset, the mythical Pokémon. These are creatures defined not by their strength or their role in the story, but by their method of distribution. You cannot find a mythical Pokémon by grinding through tall grass. You cannot soft reset for it in a cave. You cannot trade for it in the standard in-game economy. The only way to obtain one was through a special event, a real-world distribution that demanded you be in the right place at the right time. This scarcity shaped the early Pokémon community in ways that still echo today. Think back to the late 1990s. The games had just taken the world by storm, and rumors were everywhere. There was talk of a secret Pokémon hidden beneath a truck near the SS Anne, a truck that, if you used strength to push it, would reveal a ladder leading to an encounter with Mew. It was a myth within the myth, a story passed from playground to playground, fueled by grainy screenshots and wishful thinking. Nintendo eventually confirmed Mew's existence, but not through gameplay. They gave it away at tournaments, through magazine giveaways, and later through the innovative distribution system of the Pokewalker and special events. That first mythical set the precedent. You had to be there. As the generations rolled on, the pattern solidified. Celebi arrived with Pokémon Gold and Silver as a time-traveling guardian of the forest, but only if you attended a Nintendo Power event or visited a store kiosk. Jirachi, the Wishing Star, came on a special disc for Pokémon Colosseum. Deoxys, the alien DNA Pokémon, made its debut through a distribution that required a trip to a movie theater or a GameStop. Each event became a landmark in the lives of players. Missing a distribution meant missing the Pokémon forever, at least until a re-release years later. This created a culture of exclusivity and community. Trainers would travel miles, line up for hours, and trade their rarest shinies just to secure a ticket to the event. The mythical Pokémon were not just creatures, they were trophies, milestones, badges of participation in a global phenomenon. Over time, the roster grew. As of the 9th generation, with the hidden treasure of Area 0, there are 23 recognized mythical Pokémon, 23 entities that sit outside the standard Pokédex progression, each with its own origin story, its own abstract concept, and its own event distribution history. They are the genetic ancestor Mew, the time traveler Celebi, the wishmaker Jirachi, the alien Deoxys, the ocean guardian Manaphy, the nightmare incarnate Darkrai, the gratitude flower Shaman, the creator Arceus, the victory symbol Victini, the sword of justice Keldeo, the melody singer Meloetta, the cybernetic Genesect, the human-made Majana, the war spirit Marshadow, the lightning brute Zeraora, the metal evolution Melton, and its final form Melmetal, the forest rogue Zarude, and the newest Pecorant, the poison of Area Zero. Each of these names carries a story of scarcity. They represent abstract concepts like fear, war, victory, music, machine, and poison. Some are tied to cosmic events, others to human creation, but they all share one defining trait. You had to earn them through a moment in time. That exclusivity is what separates a myth from a legend. A legend can be hunted, a myth must be received, and yet, even among the mythical, there is one that sits above all others, one whose scarcity is not just a distribution gimmick, but a fundamental part of its identity as the original creator of everything. That creature is the subject of our next chapter, the original one, and that distinction between the legendary and the mythical is more than just a matter of distribution codes or event dates. It's a reflection of how the Pokémon world itself understands rarity, power, and origin. The creatures we call mythical are not merely rare, they are singular. They exist outside the normal cycles of breeding, habitat, and encounter. They arrive as gifts, as anomalies, as fragments of a story that predates the very concept of a Pokeball. And at the very heart of that story, before any of the others, before time had a name and space had a shape, there was only one, the original one. To speak of Arceus is to speak of a beginning that is not quite a beginning, because before Arceus, there was nothing, not an empty space, not a silent void, but a state so absolute that even the idea of nothingness cannot fully capture it. Ancient texts from the Sinnoh region describe this as a cosmic egg, a seed of potential floating in a sea of non-existence. And from that egg, Arceus emerged, not born, not created, emerged. The moment of that emergence is the closest thing the Pokémon universe has to a Genesis event, but it's not portrayed as a violent explosion or a sudden flash of light. Instead, the lore presents it as a quiet, deliberate unfolding, a will asserting itself into the total absence of anything. Arceus, the first conscious being, looked upon the void and found it wanting, and so it began to shape. This is where the story becomes both scientifically provocative and deeply philosophical, because the Pokémon world, for all its magical creatures and mysterious energies, operates under a set of physical laws that are remarkably consistent. Gravity works, time flows forward, space expands and contracts, cause and effect hold, and yet those laws did not exist before Arceus. They had to be invented. The original one did not simply create the universe like an artist painting on a canvas. It created the canvas itself, the dimensions, the rules, the very fabric of existence. When you read the Sinnoh myths, you find a description of Arceus forming the boundaries of the universe, establishing the limits within which all other existence would later be possible. That is a profoundly different kind of creation than, say, a deity that molds clay or speaks worlds into being. Arceus set the parameters. It defined what could and could not happen. It wrote the physics that would govern every falling stone, every passing second, every shimmer of light across an endless sky. And that brings us to a question that scholars of the Pokémon world have debated for generations. How does a creator deity fit into a framework that also includes science, evolution, and natural selection? After all, we know that Pokémon like Porygon are artificially created through programming. We know that Deoxys has a genetic structure that suggests extraterrestrial origins. We know that Mew contains the DNA of every Pokémon that would later exist. If Arceus truly created everything, where does that leave the processes of mutation, adaptation, and environmental pressure? The answer, if one exists, lies in the nature of what Arceus created first. Before there were planets, before there were stars, before there were life forms of any kind, Arceus brought forth three beings who would become the architects of reality itself. They were not servants or soldiers. They were extensions of the original act of creation. Dialga, the embodiment of time, Palkia, the embodiment of space, and Giratina, the embodiment of antimatter. The necessary counterbalance that ensures existence does not collapse into itself. These three were the first laws. They were the framework upon which all subsequent physics would be built. And in creating them, Arceus set a precedent. The universe would be governed not by blind chance, but by conscious entities that could interpret, enforce, and occasionally adjust those laws. That is the philosophical twist. The Pokémon world's science is real. You can study it, measure it, replicate it, but it is also personal. The laws of nature have names. They have personalities. They have conflicts. So when Arceus emerged from the cosmic egg, it did not simply start building. It laid down the foundations of a system that would later include evolution, time travel, dimensional rifts, and the strange interplay of matter and antimatter that in the Distortion world. And then, having set that stage, the original one withdrew. It did not micromanage. It did not intervene directly in every meteor strike or every war. It created the conditions for existence to unfold on its own terms. But that withdrawal is not abandonment, is governance by design. Arceus remains, somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary perception, watching the universe it brought into being. And occasionally, when the balance tips too far, when the laws are bent or broken, it sends a sign, a pillar of light, a tremor in the fabric of space, a mythical egg, which brings us to the first of those early creations. The beings that would step into the roles of guardians, architects, and sometimes tyrants of the new reality. The story of how Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina shaped the cosmos, and how their sibling rivalry nearly tore it apart, is a story that begins right here, in the silence after the first light. It is a story of power, of jealousy, and of the terrible responsibility that comes with being the very fabric of existence. That story is Chapter 3, Architects of Reality. From the cosmic egg, the original one emerged. The laws of existence were established. The foundations of physics laid down across an infinite canvas of nothingness. But a universe is more than just a set of rules. It needs guardians, architects who could maintain the structure and breathe life into the framework. And so, Arceus broke its singular will into a trinity of purpose. The first of these was born from light and time itself. Dialga, the Shining One. Its very presence gave direction to the arrow of time, turning an eternal, stagnant moment into a flowing river of cause and effect. With Dialga, there was now a past, a present, and a future. Memory was born. Motion had a rhythm. The universe could now age, grow, and evolve. But what is time without space? A single point has no dimension on its own. The second was Palkia. Where Dialga gave the universe rhythm, Palkia gave it volume. It pushed the boundaries of reality outward, creating the vastness that we call the cosmos. Every star, every planet, every pocket of empty space between them exists because Palkia expanded the canvas. This was the birth of Dialga and Palkia, to govern the flow of time and the expansion of space. They were the architects of order, building the stage upon which history could unfold. But for every act of creation, there must be an equal and opposite force, a shadow to the light, a silence to the sound. Arceus needed a third pillar to anchor the extremes. This was Giratina. But where Dialga and Palkia were carved from the logic of order, Giratina was born from the remnants of the chaos that existed before the egg. It represented antimatter and entropy. It was the boundary keeper, the guardian of the edge, the master of the lawless space between dimensions. This was the creation of Giratina as a necessary counterbalance, representing antimatter and chaos. Giratina was not evil. It was a pressure valve, a vent for the raw, untamable energy that pure order could not contain. For a time, a concept that Dialga now defined, the three operated in perfect equilibrium. Time flowed forward, space expanded outward, and Giratina absorbed the chaotic overflow from the creation process, keeping the edges of reality safe from the wild entropy of the void. The universe hummed in a silent cosmic harmony, the initial stability of the cosmos before the first great conflict between the trio was a beautiful, fragile thing. The architects worked in lockstep, and for a brief, perfect moment, reality was stable, but the very nature of this trinity contained the seeds of its own undoing. Giratina's domain, that realm of distorted physics, was not built for peace. It was built for absorption. The violence of creation, the raw antimatter, it began to pulse with a will of its own. Its very nature clashed with the rigid order of the other two. The first great conflict was not born of malice. It was born of incompatibility. The flow of time and the expansion of space could not coexist with the raw, chaotic entropy of their counterpart. The shadow refused to stay where it was cast, and so the original one had to make a decision. To preserve the beautiful, fragile order of the universe it had built, the counterbalance had to be sealed away. This is where the story takes its most profound turn. Giratina was banished, not to a place but to a concept, a ruptured dimension of pure antimatter where time has no meaning and space is a broken mirror, a prison made of the very chaos it was meant to contain. This is the story of the Distortion world and the birth of the legend of the Banished One. But that is a chapter for another night. Chapter 4. Banishment to the Distortion world. Three beings emerged from the light Arceus had woven into lore. Dialga, whose heartbeat became the steady pulse of time. Palkia, whose breath stretched the fabric of space to infinity. And Giratina, the one who was never meant for the light. Giratina was born not of order, but of opposition, while Dialga governed the forward march of seconds and centuries, and Palkia held the coordinates of every star and every atom. Giratina was given dominion over antimatter, the counterbalance to existence itself. In the beginning, this was not a punishment, it was necessity, for every force in the universe must have its equal and opposing pull, or the whole structure tears itself apart. But antimatter is not merely a mirror, it is a hunger, a force that, when brought too close to matter, annihilates. And Giratina, for all its power, was not immune to the nature of its own domain. In the early days of the cosmos, the renegade Pokémon did not simply dwell in the void between worlds. It prowled. It watched as Dialga carved mountains by aging them forward 1,000,000 years. It observed Palkia folding galaxies into the palms of newborn stars, and with each passing moment, a deep and growing resentment began to crystallize within Giratina's consciousness. Why watch when you can act? Why balance when you can dominate? The first signs of violence were subtle. A rift here, a tear in the sky there. Giratina began to test the boundaries of its realm, reaching tendrils of distorted matter into the spaces Palkia had shaped. It was not outright war, not yet. It was the slow corrosion of order. Time stuttered in places where Giratina's influence bled through. Palkia's perfect geometries grew warped, crooked, as if reality itself had caught a fever. Arceus witnessed all of this from the still point beyond creation, and the original one understood that the balance was shifting. A counterbalance that lashes out is no longer a balance, it becomes a weapon. So Arceus intervened, but the creator did not destroy Giratina. It did not unmake what it had made. Instead, Arceus reached into the fabric of the newly formed universe and pulled open a space that was never meant to be a home, a pocket dimension, a prison of paradox. And into this realm Giratina was cast. This place became known as the Distortion world, and to describe it as a mere alternate dimension would miss the strangeness of its design. In the Distortion world, time does not flow, it does not stop either. It simply does not exist as a dimension. There is no before, there is no after. There is only now, stretched into an infinite frozen moment. A single thought can last 1,000 years, and yet no time passes at all. Space is even more alien. Gravity is a suggestion, not a law. The ground rises to meet your feet, and then melts away into vertical cliffs of impossible geometry. You can walk up a wall and find yourself walking down the ceiling without ever turning around. Rivers of shadow flow upward, and islands of rock hang suspended like icicles from an invisible sky. It is a world without straight lines, without permanence, without the comforting rules that make reality feel solid. Into this realm of broken laws, Giratina was sentenced, but exile was not the end of its purpose. Arceus, in its infinite foresight, had woven one final thread into the design. The Distortion world was not only a prison, it was a keystone. The entire structural integrity of the universe, the barrier between the material world and the chaos beyond, relies on the Distortion world existing as a stabilizer. It absorbs the spillover from the constant expansion of space and the wear of time. Without it, reality would fray. And who better to guard that threshold than the being who once threatened it? Giratina became the eternal vigil, the warden of its own cage. It dwells in that frozen, warped dimension, its six-legged form gliding through the twisted geometry. It sees the seams of reality from the inside. It feels every tremor in the foundation of existence. And though its nature still rages with the ferocity of antimatter, it no longer lashes out against the worlds above. Some legends say Giratina waits, not for escape, for it cannot truly leave without unbalancing the cosmos, but for a time when the barrier between the Distortion world and the material plane grows thin, when the distortions leak through in the form of haunted places, missing time, and ghost lights in the reeds. Then Giratina's presence is felt, not as a threat, but as a reminder that even chaos has its place in the order of things. The Distortion world remains hidden, but those few who have glimpsed it, trainers who have followed the call of a broken Pokémon, explorers who strayed too far into the shadows of Sinnoh, they speak of a place where the laws of physics weep, where time is a forgotten language, and where a great shadow moves, always watching, always waiting. Arceus created Dialga to measure the journey of existence, Palkia to give it a stage, and Giratina to remind existence that it can be undone. Because to truly understand creation, you must also understand the void it rose from. And now you know where that void dwells. But the original one did not stop with the architects of time, space, and antimatter. There were others, beings not of structure, but of feeling, of will, of the very emotions that would one day give life its meaning. And their story begins with a lake, 3 jewels of light, and the quietest cry in the universe. That is the story of the Sentinels of Emotion. With Giratina cast into the Distortion world, that realm where time does not flow and space is a cage of impossible geometry, the universe breathed easier. The chaos had been quarantined, the boundaries held. But a universe without chaos is not the same as a universe with meaning. Arceus, the original one, looked upon the vast emptiness between the spinning stars and the monotonous march of time, and saw that something was missing. The world had shape, the world had structure, but it had no soul. So Arceus created 3 beings of pure spirit. They were not forged from the roaring fires of creation, nor carved from the bedrock of reality. They were woven from light and thought, from the raw potential of consciousness itself, and they were destined to sink into the deep places of the world, becoming the hidden heartbeat of all life. The first was Uxie, the being of knowledge. Uxie descended into the frigid, dark waters of Lake Acuity, and as it sank into the absolute stillness, the very concept of understanding was seeded into the minds of every living thing. Before Uxie, there was only instinct. After Uxie, there was awareness, the ability to observe, to remember, to ask why. Uxie became the guardian of truth, sitting in the shadow of the northern mountains, holding the memory of every secret ever learned. The second was Mesprit, the being of emotion. It found its home in the peaceful, shimmering waters of Lake Verity. Nestled in the heart of the Route 201, Mesprit did not teach knowledge, but feeling, the sharp ache of loss, the overwhelming warmth of love, the simple peace of a quiet morning. Mesprit wove the fabric of sentiment into the very fabric of reality. It gave living beings the capacity to care, to mourn, to rejoice, to be moved. The third was Azelf, the being of willpower. It claimed the cavernous, isolated depths of Lake Valor far to the east. Azelf gave the spark of determination, the strength to resist temptation, the iron resolve to face impossible odds and refuse to break. Willpower is the engine of action, and Azelf sits at its core, a tiny figure of immense light, guarding the very principle of self-determination. Together, they bestowed the three pillars of the living spirit: knowledge, emotion, and will, the mind, the heart, and the spirit. But their purpose was not solely to be the givers of gifts. Arceus, in his infinite foresight, anticipated a flaw in his creation. Dialga and Palkia, the architects of reality, possessed absolute dominion over their domains. They were forces of nature given form. But what if they fought? What if their raw power grew into rage? You cannot fight time with an army. You cannot bully space into submission. To pacify the rulers of the universe, you must appeal to something deeper than force. You must appeal to the soul. This was the Lake Guardians' secondary purpose. They were the universe's fail-safe, the contingency plan for the gods themselves. Should Dialga ever grow wrathful enough to shatter the timeline, Uxie could erase its understanding of its own fury, showing it a truth so vast that anger becomes meaningless. Should Palkia ever twist space into a weapon of destruction, Mesprit could flood its mind with a memory so profound, so tender, it would forget its rage and remember its connection to the cosmos. Should both threaten to tear creation apart, Azelf could simply will them to stop, not through overwhelming power, but through the absolute conviction of its own being. The Lake Guardians are not warriors. They are the universe's conscience, holding the key to peace, not through strength, but through the very essence of existence. In the lore of the Sinnoh region, this connection is absolute. The three lakes are not just bodies of water. They are mirrors to the human condition. The ancient texts of Canalav Library whisper of how these three fled to their lakes, hiding their power not out of fear, but out of a desire to remain woven into the spirit of the land, rather than ruling over it. They gave their gifts and then waited. Team Galactic, under the cold direction of Cyrus, understood this bond better than anyone. Cyrus did not want to capture Dialga and Palkia by force alone. He knew the red chain was necessary, and to create the red chain, he needed the essence of the Lake Guardians. He dragged Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf from their sacred waters, not because they were powerful in battle, but because their very existence was the voice of the conscience that stood in his way. He sought a world without spirit, without emotion, without will. To achieve it, he had to silence the three beings who define those very concepts. When you free them in the games, you are not just rescuing three Pokémon. You are restoring the balance of the soul to the universe. You are allowing the failsafe to return to its post. It is a deeply personal moment, because these three are tied to you, the player. They test you. Uxie tests your knowledge. Azelf tests your will. Mesprit tests your bonds. They are the only legendary beings who directly acknowledge the player's inner world. Consider the isolation of these beings. They have sat in their caves for countless millennia, waiting for a moment of crisis, waiting for a soul worthy of their power. They are ancient beyond comprehension, yet they speak the language of the heart. That is the beautiful paradox of the Lake Guardians. In their silence, they hold the memory of every thought, every tear, every act of courage ever performed in the history of Sinnoh. They are the living record of the spirit. But the work of creation did not end with the final settling of the lakes. The universe, vast and infinite, demanded more than just laws and a conscience. It demanded wonders. Whispers in the oldest texts speak of a specific group chosen before the formation of the very cosmos. A handful of singular beings, older than the mountains, older than the seas, the Eight Firstborns. Among them, one was born from a meteorite that tore across the heavens and crashed into a tranquil lake, carrying with it the power to grant any wish, to heal any wound, to bring a dream into reality. It slept for 1,000 years, waiting for a world prepared to receive its light. But there were others, scattered across the stars, their stories bound to the deepest mysteries of the void. their awakening still waiting at the edge of destiny, with the late Guardians now keeping watch over the fabric of emotion and will. The universe had its architects and its sentinels, but something was still missing. The vast cosmic machinery was complete, yet there was no spark of life, no pulse of organic existence to inhabit the worlds that Palkia had stretched across the void. The gods had laid the foundation, but the bridge between pure divine force and living, breathing creatures had yet to be built, and it is here, at this delicate threshold, that the ancient legends speak of the Eight Firstborns, not gods themselves, but something more than mere mortals. They were the first beings created after the primary gods, the first to carry the potential for life in a universe that had only known abstract power until then. These eight were not born from the same raw cosmic energy that shaped Dialga and Palkia. Their creation was more deliberate, more intimate. They were designed to inhabit the physical worlds, to experience time and space, not as rulers but as participants. They were the prototypes of everything that would later come to crawl, swim, and fly across the planets. And of these eight, one holds a story that has echoed through the ages, a tale written in the stars and sealed within a meteorite that fell to Earth long before any human ever walked the surface. That being is Jirachi. The legends say that Jirachi did not emerge from the mind of Arceus in the same way as the creation trio. Instead, it arrived on a meteorite, a fiery messenger from the depths of space. The impact of that meteorite into a lake sent ripples not just through water, but through the very fabric of the planet itself. Some believe that Jirachi's arrival was not an accident, but a deliberate awakening, a signal that the planet was ready to begin its transformation into a living world. The meteorite strike acted like a key turning in a lock, activating the latent potential of the Earth and stirring the first stirrings of life in the primordial soup. Jirachi itself is known as the Wish Granter, a being that can make any desire come true, but only for 7 days every 1,000 years when it awakens from its slumber. This cyclical sleep mirrors the long, patient rhythm of planetary evolution. A world does not come alive in an instant. It must dream, wait, and awaken slowly. Jirachi embodies that process, a sleeping star that holds the promise of life within its core. And it is said that during those 7 days, the barrier between the divine and the mortal grows thin, and wishes can ripple across reality. But Jirachi was not alone among the Eight Firstborns. The ancient texts speak of others, beings that fill different niches in the nascent universe. There was one that watched over the oceans, one that guarded the forests, one that held the power of the mind, and others whose names have been lost or kept secret by the passage of eons. What unites them all is that they were the first to truly live, to feel, to dream. They bridged the gap between the cold perfection of divine creation and the messy, beautiful chaos of biological life. They were the first to have desires, fears, and hopes. They were the first to be mortal, in the sense that they could sleep, could be wounded, could pass into legend. And it is precisely this mortal quality that makes them so fascinating. Arceus is eternal, unchanging, a force beyond comprehension. But the Eight Firstborns were meant to be understood. They were made to interact with the worlds they inhabited. Jirachi, for instance, was not just a cosmic artifact. It was a companion, a guide, a friend to those who found its meteorite and tended to its slumber. This relationship between the divine and the mundane, between the ancient and the newly born, would define the entire history of mythical Pokémon to come. Now the impact of Jirachi's meteorite did more than just awaken the planet. It also scattered fragments of that cosmic energy across the land. Some of those fragments would later coalesce into other legendary beings, each carrying a piece of that original wish. And one of those fragments, a tiny cloud of stardust, would drift through space for eons before taking on a form of its own. That fragment would eventually grow into something new, something that would challenge our understanding of what it means to be a creature of myth. But that is a story for another time. A story that involves a creature from the deepest reaches of the cosmos. a being that would be born from the expansion of space itself, and that would stand as a testament to the ongoing creation of the universe. The next chapter in this long history begins with a single spark of light, a newborn star that would grow into a legend all its own. The Cosmog Lineage is waiting to be explored. When the meteorite that carried Jirachi struck the ancient lakes, it did more than awaken the planet. It left a scar in the fabric of space itself. Palkia, the Lord of Spatial Dimensions, felt that disturbance ripple outward like a stone dropped into still water. And in that moment, the expansion of the universe accelerated, not in the slow, measured drift of cosmic inflation, but in a sudden, purposeful surge. Palkia was stretching the boundaries of existence, and within that stretch, something new was born, something that had never existed before. Deep within the expanding emptiness, where the raw energy of space-time swirled and condensed, a faint nebula formed, not a cloud of gas and dust, but a living, breathing entity. This was the first of the Nebula Pokémon, a creature of pure spatial matter, woven from the same threads that Palkia wove into the very structure of reality. It had no name yet, it had no form. It was a shimmering haze of potential, drifting through the newly carved void, waiting for purpose. And then, Palkia did something unexpected. It reached into that nebula and shaped it. With a gesture, the Lord of Space compressed the cosmic fog into a single fragile being, a being that could travel between dimensions without tearing them apart, a being that could step through the cracks in the universe and emerge anywhere, anywhen, unharmed. This was the birth of Cosmog, the Nebula Pokémon, the first child of Palkia's will. But Cosmog was not meant to stay in one place. It was a wanderer by design, a seed cast into the winds of the multiverse. Palkia opened doorways, ultra wormholes they would later be called, and through them, Cosmog began its migration. It drifted from sun to sun, from moon to moon, carried by currents of space that Palkia had set in motion. Where it landed, it left a faint trace of its presence, a memory of the primordial nebula from which it came. And as Cosmog travelled, it absorbed the light of the stars. It felt the gravity of planets pull at its core. It bathed in the radiance of distant suns and the cool glow of orbiting moons. Slowly, over eons, that light began to transform it. The fragile, formless child of space began to crystallize into something more. When it finally settled upon a star rich in solar energy, or a moon bathed in perpetual twilight, Cosmog began to evolve. On worlds bathed in eternal sunlight, Cosmog became Solgaleo, a majestic lion-like being of pure solar power. Solgaleo did not merely live on the sun. It became the sun's anchor, a fixed point of light that held the star's energy in balance. Its mane burned with the furnace of a young star, and its roar could command the very tides of light. On those same worlds, when the sun set and the moon rose, another transformation took hold. Cosmog, touched by the darkness of space and the silver glow of a satellite, became Lunala, a spectral, bat-winged harbinger of the night. Lunala did not simply inhabit the moon. It became the moon's anchor, a constant sentinel that guided the tides of emotion and dream. Together, Solgaleo and Lunala served as anchors for planetary light. They stabilized the energy of their homes, ensuring that the balance between day and night remained unbroken. But they were not alone. Every Cosmog that had migrated through the ultra wormholes found a star or moon to call its own. Some became Solgaleo, some became Lunala, and some, perhaps the oldest and most powerful, remained as Cosmog, watching over the crossroads of dimensions, waiting for the next call from the Lord of Space. And so the lineage of the Nebula Pokémon was set. Palkia had not only expanded the universe, it had seeded it with living bridges between dimensions. These beings, born of space and light, now guard the cosmic boundaries. They are the children of the void, the wards of the stars, and the silent anchors that hold the fabric of reality steady. But Palkia's work was not finished. The universe was vast, but it was also empty. Life needed nurturing, not just light. And so in the chapters to come, Arceus would turn its gaze to the planets themselves, creating 4 guardians to make the worlds flourish. a task that would eventually lead to the rise of the Guardians of the Planets. And so, the story of the cosmos was not one of absolute stillness. After the architects of reality had established the great pillars of time, space, and antimatter, after the emotional sentinels had been placed to watch over the minds and hearts of all beings, and after the firstborns had begun to stir from their meteoric cradles, there remained a vast and silent shore. The universe, though shaped and ordered, was still a canvas of empty worlds. Planets spun in the void, lifeless and waiting, cradling oceans and land masses that had never known the touch of growth. Something needed to tend them. Something needed to breathe intention into the soil and the sea. The legends say that 100 million years after the great meteor that gave rise to Jirachi, Arceus turned its attention from the raw forces of creation to the delicate art of stewardship. For every planet that could sustain life, there would be guardians, not rulers of time or space, but caretakers of ecosystems, protectors of the fragile balance between growth and decay. And so the Tapu were born. 4 beings, each aligned with a fundamental element of nature, were crafted for every habitable world in existence. Their names are familiar to us now, but in the language of the ancient Alola region, they were known as the guardians of the land itself. Tapu Koko, the spirit of the sky and the lightning, the energy that sparks the very first flickers of life into motion. Tapu Lele, the essence of healing and psychic energy, the gentle force that nurtures growth and calms the turmoil of a newborn world. Tapu Bulu, the embodiment of the soil and the forest, the patient weaver of roots and leaves, the one who ensures that vegetation spreads across barren rock and turns it green. And Tapu Fini, the keeper of the waters and the haze, the one who purifies the oceans and sets the boundaries between land and sea, between life and what lies beyond. These were not merely spirits of place. They were active stewards, each with a specific elemental role that guided the development of entire ecosystems. Tapu Koko, with its electric command, would orchestrate the storms that brought rain and the lightning that could ignite new possibilities. Tapu Lele would scatter its psychic scales across the land, accelerating the healing of wounds in the natural world, accelerating the growth of flora and the development of neural pathways in the most primitive fauna. Tapu Bulu would sink its great horns into the earth, drawing nutrients from deep within and coaxing forests to rise from the plains. Tapu Fini would weave the mists that protected coastlines and created the perfect conditions for life to thrive in the shallows. The deployment of the Tapu Guardians to ensure life flourished on habitable worlds was not a singular event, but a gradual awakening. Legend holds that as each new planet formed, a conduit of energy would open from the heart of the cosmos, and a set of these 4 beings would emerge from the fabric of reality itself. They would descend upon the world and take their places at the 4 cardinal points, their auras merging with the land. Over millennia, they would guide the evolution of species, the formation of complex ecosystems, and the emergence of consciousness in the life they tended. This was a profound transition from cosmic creation to the stewardship of nature and ecosystems. The universe was no longer just a vast, empty mechanism of stars and gravity. It had become a garden, and the Tapu were its gardeners. Where Arceus had spoken universes into being, the Tapu whispered to the seeds, the spores, and the fledgling creatures. They did not command life to exist. They coaxed it, encouraged it, and protected it from the chaos that still lingered in the corners of space. And yet, even as these guardians spread across the world, something else was stirring. A being that was not created for a specific role, but contained within itself the blueprint for all life that would ever evolve. It was not one of the Tapu, nor one of the firstborns, nor any of the primary gods. It was something older in potential, though younger in origin. A being whose existence would challenge the very definition of creation itself. Its name would become synonymous with mystery, and its genetic code would hold secrets that even the Guardians could not fathom. That story is for another night. A tale of a single Pokémon whose DNA echoes in every living thing, from the smallest plant to the highest peak of the Tapu's domain. But before we reach that chapter, we must understand what it means for life to have a blueprint, and why that blueprint was hidden so carefully. While the Tapu Guardians settled into their ancient watch over the living worlds, life itself was undergoing a transformation far more quiet and far more profound. The elements were in balance, the errors were seeded, but the diversity that would eventually define the Pokémon world had not yet fully bloomed. Every species that would one day walk the land, swim the seas, or glide through the sky traces its lineage back to a single source, a single creature that existed long before the first ocean waves crashed against the first continent, a living fossil, not of bone and stone, but of pure genetic memory. On the northern coast of South America, deep within the dense, untamed jungles of Guyana, explorers discovered something that shook the foundations of the natural world. It was not a fossil, nor a lost relic of a forgotten civilization. It was alive, a small, pink, feeling creature with large eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. This was Mew. Initial studies were baffling. This creature possessed abilities that no single species should command. It could learn any technique, adapt to any environment, and use moves from every known type. It was as if it was not just a single creature, but the living blueprint for all creatures. The scientific community was forced to confront a staggering conclusion. Mew is the progenitor of almost every Pokémon that has ever lived. It is the common root from which the vast, sprawling tree of life has grown. The true scale of this discovery became fully realized only when researchers began to analyze Mew's unique genetic structure. Its DNA is not merely complex, it is a complete encyclopedia of the Pokémon world. Within the double helix of this elusive being lies the genetic coding for the fire that burns within a Charmander, the water that flows through a Squirtle, the static electricity that crackles around a Pikachu. It holds the template for the mountainous strength of a Snorlax and the delicate psychic harmony of an Abra. Every adaptation, every specialized trait that evolution has ever produced is held in perfect suspension within Mew's cells. It is as if the entirety of the Pokémon world was written into a single living book, hidden away in the jungle. How can a single organism contain such staggering diversity? The answer is rooted in the fundamental nature of creation itself. Mew's genetic code is not merely a collection of mutations that accumulated over time. It is a sacred archive, a representation of pure potential, a point of origin where all possible evolutionary paths converge. This brings us to the deepest mystery surrounding Mew. Why did this creature remain hidden while its descendants populated the entire globe? From the highest peaks to the deepest ocean trenches, Mew's genetic legacy thrived and diversified. But the originator itself chose obscurity. It did not conquer. It did not build societies. It simply existed in the most remote and quiet corners of the earth. Was it hiding from the world it helped create? Or was it protecting something infinitely precious? Perhaps the true purpose of Mew is not to lead or to fight, but to archive. It serves as a pristine, untouched source of the original genetic code, kept safe from the ravages of time and the interference of ambitious humans. Mew is a living failsafe, a whisper from the beginning of time that the Pokémon world has never truly forgotten its roots. It wanders unseen, appearing only to those with the purest of intentions, a silent guardian of the origin story of life itself. But this fragile connection to the original blueprint was not destined to remain undisturbed forever. The discovery of Mew's DNA, the very script of creation, became a temptation too powerful for humanity to ignore. If the genetic blueprint of all life could be held in a single being, could it be read? Could it be copied? Could it be surpassed by a creation of human hands? There was no turning back from that question. This leads us directly into the next chapter, the ghost in the machine. In the shadow of this great discovery, a new kind of life was being forged, not through the slow, careful processes of nature, but through the cold and efficient logic of a laboratory. The attempt to replicate the perfect genetic structure of Mew gave rise to something entirely unexpected. not a true descendant, but a manufactured vessel of pure psychic power and immense existential rage. It is in this moment that the original blueprint was corrupted, and a ghost was born inside the machine of life itself. From the jungles of Guyana, where the first whispers of Mew were uncovered, we now turn toward something even stranger. Something that was never meant to exist in the hands of players at all. The creature we call Mew, the genetic ancestor of nearly every Pokémon, was not part of the original vision for the games when they first launched in Japan in 1996. It was a ghost, a secret added without the knowledge of most of the development team, inserted into the code by a single programmer working in the shadows. That programmer was Shigeki Morimoto, and his quiet act of rebellion would fundamentally change the way Pokémon was experienced forever. To understand what Morimoto did, we have to look at the constraints and the culture of Game Freak at the time. The cartridge for Pokémon Red and Green in Japan was already packed to capacity. The team had fought tooth and nail to fit everything in, cutting Pokémon, trimming maps, compressing sprites, just to make it all work. There was no room for extras, no budget for post-launch content, no infrastructure for downloadable updates. And yet, Morimoto had a vision for a secret Pokémon, something so rare and so hidden that only the most dedicated players, or those with inside knowledge, would ever see it. He coded Mew into the game on his own time, using only the leftover space he could scavenge from the cartridge, a few hundred bytes here and there, stitching the data together like a patchwork quilt made of scraps. The official story from Nintendo and Game Freak for years was that Mew was a special bonus for players who attended official events, and that was true to an extent. But the deeper truth is more fascinating. Morimoto designed Mew to be distributed via a special event that would modify the game date, allowing the Pokémon to appear. In the Japanese version, there was a planned event in late 1996 where a select few players could receive Mew through a trade with a Nintendo employee at a store in Tokyo. But Mew's existence was not widely known at first. The real explosion of interest came from the players themselves, who began to discover that Mew was present in the code, and who then spread wild rumors about how to obtain it. This is where the legend of the truck begins. In the port city of Vermilion City, along the docks of the S, and there is a single seemingly out-of-place object, a truck. It sits on the pier, partially obscured by the angle of the camera, and it cannot be interacted with in any normal way. You cannot walk up to it. You cannot examine it. There is no scripted event tied to it whatsoever. And yet, for millions of children in the late 1990s, that truck became the most famous piece of unused game geometry in history. The rumor spread like wildfire across playgrounds and early internet forums, like something out of a modern urban legend. Use strength on the truck, push it out of the way, and underneath you will find Mew. The rumor had a certain logic to it. The truck was deliberately placed there, after all. Why else would it exist, if not for some hidden purpose? And the move strength, which allowed players to push rocks and boulders, seemed like the perfect tool to solve the puzzle. Kids tried it. They trained their Pokémon. They taught the move to a creature strong enough. They returned to Vermilion City at every stage of the game, hoping that some unseen flag had been triggered, but nothing ever worked. The truck never moved. Mew was never there, and yet the rumor refused to die. It adapted. It evolved. New layers were added. You had to have all 8 badges. You had to have a specific Pokémon in your party. You had to perform a sequence of hidden actions. The myth grew more elaborate precisely because it remained unverified. The cultural impact of this rumor cannot be overstated. In an era before widespread internet access and before data mining became a common practice, the mystery of Mew and the truck was a shared experience for an entire generation of players. It taught us that games could hold secrets beyond what was printed in the official guidebooks. It fostered a sense of community and collaboration as kids traded tips and tricks on the playground, Each new piece of information passed from hand to hand like a whispered secret, and it also taught us something about disappointment, about the gap between what a game tells you and what it could be hiding. That gap is where myths are born, but the real method to obtain Mew was far stranger and far more fragile than pushing a truck. It was a glitch, a bug in the code that had never been intended by the developers. A few players discovered that by exploiting a specific sequence of actions involving the encounter with a particular trainer on Route 24, they could cause the game to warp into a state where wild Mew would appear. This glitch, later known as the Mew glitch or the Trainerfly glitch, relied on manipulating the game's memory values by viewing a specific trainer's lineup and then immediately using the move fly to trigger a battle. The result was a completely unpredictable encounter that could yield not just Mew, but any number of glitch Pokémon, depending on the exact variables involved. The existence of this glitch was a closely guarded secret for a long time, passed around among a small community of obsessive players and code crackers. It was never intended, never advertised, never acknowledged by Nintendo until years later, and yet it was the only way for most players to ever obtain Mew without attending one of the rare official events. The events themselves were strange too. In North America, Nintendo ran a promotional tour called the Pokémon World Tour in 1998, where players could bring their cartridges to a booth and have Mew downloaded onto them. Later, in 2000, there was a special distribution through Nintendo Power magazine, where subscribers could mail in their cartridge and receive Mew by mail. Imagine that. Mailing your entire game, your entire save file, with all your precious Pokémon, to a magazine, trusting that it would come back with a mythical creature loaded onto it. That was the reality of event distributions in the early days. So Mew lived a double life. In the lore of the Pokémon world, it is the ancestor of all species, the keeper of the genetic blueprint, a being of immense power that drifts unseen through the jungles of the world. But in the real world, Mew was something else entirely. It was a ghost in the machine, an accidental legend born from the last-minute tinkering of a single programmer, a secret that the developers themselves had to scramble to explain and control. Its very existence was a rumour for months after the games launched. Players knew there was a 151st Pokémon, but no one could confirm it. The Pokédex entries in the official strategy guides listed a blank space. The official Nintendo Power magazine teased it with silhouettes and cryptic hints. Mew was the original mythical Pokémon in every sense of the word, a creature of pure mystery, defined not by its presence but by its absence. This pattern, this blueprint for how a mythical Pokémon should be introduced to the world, was established right here in Generation 1 and has been repeated with every mythical that has followed. There is always a period of uncertainty, a time when the Pokémon is known to exist but cannot be obtained. There are always rumours, some true, some false, but all of them feeding into a collective sense of wonder. There are always events, special distributions that require the player to attend a physical location or perform a specific action outside the normal game loop. And there is always the sense of exclusivity, the feeling that you are part of a select group if you manage to add that Pokémon to your collection. Mew created the archetype. Celebi, Jirachi, Deoxys, Darkrai, Shaymin, Arceus, Victini, and every mythical that followed would walk the same path, even as the methods of distribution evolved from in-person events to online Wi-Fi giveaways, and eventually to direct unlock codes. There is a strange poetry to the fact that Mew, the genetic ancestor of all Pokémon, is also the ancestor of every mythical that came after it. The word mythical itself, applied to these creatures, comes from the circumstances of Mew's own creation. It was a myth inside the game code, a story that the developers told themselves about a secret they could hide from the world. And when that secret was discovered, it became a myth for the players, a story we told each other about a truck and a glitch that could only be obtained by those willing to believe. But Mew was not the only ghost haunting the machine of the early Pokémon games. There were other secrets buried in the code, other creatures that existed only as fragments, as echoes of abandoned ideas. Some of them would eventually find their way into later generations. Others would remain lost forever, deleted from the source code, leaving behind only the faintest trace of data, like fossils in the rock of an ancient cartridge. And one of those traces would point toward a creature that would take over a decade to fully realize. A being made of green and white, woven from the threads of time itself, in the forests of Yorto, where the trees whisper with voices that have not been heard in centuries. There is a Pokémon that has watched the ages turn. It is older than the kingdoms that rose and fell on the nearby plains. It is older than the towers that now crumble into dust along the coastline. And its song, if you could hear it, would sound something like the voice of the forest itself. But that is a story for the next chapter. And so we arrive at the strange paradox of Mew, a creature that, in the fiction of the Pokémon world, is the genetic ancestor of all species, the root from which every evolutionary branch spreads. Yet, in the real world, this same being was an afterthought, a secret addition smuggled into the code by a single programmer working late at night when no one else was watching. The disconnect is almost poetic, and it tells us something profound about how legends are born. Sometimes the most enduring myths begin not with a grand design, but with a quiet act of rebellion. Shigeki Morimoto, the man who would later become a key figure in the development of the Pokémon franchise, was at the time just another programmer on the team, young, passionate, and operating under the same brutal deadlines that defined Game Freak's early years. The original games were already overflowing, the cartridge space so tight that entire features had been cut to make room for the core experience. There was no official budget for a 151st Pokémon. There was no mandate from management to create a secret creature, and yet, Morimoto felt that the game needed something more. A final mystery to reward the most dedicated players. A whisper in the code that would keep children talking long after they had beaten the Elite Four. So he built Mew from the scraps of leftover memory, using space that was never meant to be used, coding a complete Pokémon in the margins of the cartridge, like a doodle drawn in the margins of a textbook. The way he did it was ingenious. In the final weeks of development, Morimoto discovered that there were a few small blocks of unused data scattered across the game's ROM, fragments of space that had been freed up when other features were removed. He painstakingly assembled Mew's data to fit into these gaps, piece by piece, like a jigsaw puzzle with no picture to guide him. The sprite, the stats, the moveset, the cry, all of it had to be compressed into a fraction of the space that a normal Pokémon would occupy. And he did it without telling anyone, finishing the work just days before the game went gold. When the rest of the team discovered what he had done, there was no time to remove it. Mew was already part of the game, a ghost that had slipped through the door just as it was closing. But ghost is only effective if it can be seen, or at least sensed. Morimoto's plan was never for Mew to be obtainable through normal gameplay. The creature was meant to be distributed through official events, handed out by Nintendo representatives at tournaments and store appearances, a reward for the community's most loyal members. And that is exactly what happened at first. In Japan, a small number of players received Mew through a trade event in Tokyo in the summer of 1996, but the distribution was tiny, reaching only a few hundred people. The rest of the world, and even most of Japan, had no way to obtain Mew legitimately. What they had instead was a rumour, and oh, that rumour grew. It spread across playgrounds and school buses, through the pages of Nintendo Power and the early bulletin board systems that connected the first generation of online Pokémon fans. The truck was the centerpiece of this rumour, a single static object sitting on the pier of Vermilion City, a leftover piece of map geometry that had never been given a purpose. Why was it there? Children asked themselves. If not to hide something, the game had a move called Strength, designed to push objects out of the way. The truck was the only object in the entire game that looked like it could be pushed. The logic was irresistible, and the fact that it never worked, that no combination of actions ever moved that truck an inch, only made the puzzle more compelling. The rumor adapted, adding new conditions, new layers of complexity, new requirements that the player had to meet. You had to have a level 100 Pokémon. You had to have traded for a specific creature from another version. You had to hold down the A button while pressing start at exactly the right frame. The myth evolved because it had to. The alternative, that the truck was simply a meaningless piece of decoration, was unacceptable. This was the late 1990s, mind you. There was no YouTube to debunk the rumor with a single video. There was no data mining community that could crack open the ROM and prove, beyond any doubt, that Mew was never programmed to appear under that truck. The internet existed, but it was slow, fragmented, and unreliable. A rumor could live for years, spreading from person to person, changing with each retelling, because there was no central authority that could definitively end the debate. Nintendo itself stayed silent, or at least vague, because the ambiguity served their purposes. If players believed Mew was hidden somewhere in the game, keep playing, keep talking, keep buying the strategy guides and magazines. The mystery was a marketing tool, even if it was an accidental one, and so Mew became the first mythical Pokémon in the truest sense of the word. It was not just rare, it was almost unreachable. It was a creature that existed more in conversation than in the game itself. A shared fiction that bound together an entire generation of players. The experience of hearing about the truck, of trying to push it, of failing, of hearing a more elaborate version of the rumor, of trying again, of failing again, of eventually accepting that the secret might never be yours. This was the ritual that defined the mythical Pokémon experience. Every mythical that followed, from Celebi to Pecorant, would inherit this legacy. The method of distribution would change. The events would become more streamlined. The rumors would shift from physical objects in the game world to complex glitches and timed releases. But the core dynamic remained the same. The creature is out there. You cannot find it through normal means. You have to be chosen. You have to be part of the event. You have to be there, at the right place, at the right time, with the right connection. That sense of exclusivity, of being part of an elect group that possessed the unreachable, was the engine that drove the entire mythical system for decades. And it all began with Mew, a creature that was never supposed to be in the game at all, a ghost in the machine that became the foundation of an entire category of Pokémon. The real-world history of Mew is a story about creativity in the margins, about the power of secrets to capture the imagination, about a programmer who broke the rules, and, in doing so, created a tradition that would outlast him. But the game code of Generation 1 held more than just Mew. There were other fragments, other half-remembered ideas, that never made it to the final release. Echoes of creatures that might have been, and some of those echoes would find their way into later generations, resurrected by developers who had never forgotten the concepts they were forced to abandon. The same spirit of hidden secrets that gave us Mew would eventually give us creatures like Celebi. Pokémon that, if the rumors were true, could only be found by those who understood the language of the forest itself. A language written in the rustling of leaves and the pattern of light falling through the canopy. The voice of the forest was calling, and it would not be silenced forever. From the dusty basements of playground rumor, we turn now to a much older kind of myth, one spoken not in hushed tones by children clutching a Nintendo Power, but carried on the wind through the boughs of a sacred forest, where Mew was the ghost in the human machine, a secret created by a programmer and hidden in code. Our next being is a spirit of an entirely different kind, a traveller of time, a watcher on the edge of all things, a guardian whose very existence is tied to the natural world in a way no other Pokémon can claim. You may know it as the voice of the forest, but to understand Celebi is to understand the fragile, invisible thread that connects the health of a single woodland to the stability of the entire timeline. Celebi is not a fighter. It is not a warrior that descends in moments of crisis to rewrite fate. Its role is far more subtle and far more profound. Celebi is a time-traveling guardian that appears only in times of peace. This is not a limitation of its power. It is a deliberate function of its nature. The forest spirit does not intervene in wars or natural disasters. It does not undo tragedy. Instead, it exists as a kind of confirmation, a quiet signature from the universe that the current moment is safe enough to preserve. When Celebi breaks through the boundary of time and reveals itself in a forest clearing, it is a signal that the world has reached a brief state of harmony. The conflict has passed. The air is clear. The future, at least for now, is worth visiting. This makes Celebi an extraordinary observer. It comes from a timeline that must already be stable. Its presence is the mark of a future that has survived its own tribulations. The moments Celebi chooses are not random. They are the open windows in history where the view is worth seeing. And when it arrives, it brings the forest to life. It heals the wounded trees. It restores the polluted streams. It is not just visiting a peaceful world. It is actively maintaining the conditions that create peace in the first place. The cycle is intimate and fragile. The forest must be calm to attract Celebi, and Celebi must arrive to keep the forest calm. To understand how this relationship is maintained, you have to travel deep into the Johto region, to a place called Ilex Forest. It is an ancient woodland, so old that the trees themselves seem to hum with a latent memory. The air is thick with the smell of moss and damp earth. Sunlight filters down in scattered columns, illuminating the dust that drifts through the silent groves. And at the very heart of this forest, where the roots of the oldest trees intertwine beneath the soil, there stands a shrine. It is not a grand temple. It is a simple structure of worn stone, carved with spiraling patterns that seem to shift if you look at them too long. This is the anchoring point. The connection between the Ilex Forest Shrine and the stability of the temporal woods is absolute. The shrine acts as a tether in the flow of time, a physical coordinate that Celebi can lock onto as it moves across centuries. The stability of the entire forest, the very fabric of the timeline that weaves through this region, depends on the shrine being respected. When the shrine is properly maintained, when offerings are made and the forest is treated with reverence, the connection holds strong. Travelers passing through the woods find their paths clear. The hours feel normal. Time flows as it should. But neglect the shrine, damage the forest, cut down the sacred trees, and the temporal woods begin to fracture. Lost hikers wander in circles for days, experiencing the same moments over and over. The forest literally loses its place in time. The shrine is the lock, and Celebi is the key. When the shrine is cold, the voice cannot find its way home. The forest holds its breath, waiting for the moment its guardian feels safe enough to return. This brings us to the deepest layer of Celebi's lore. Its presence acts as a biological indicator for the health of the planet's future. Think of it like a canary in a coal mine, but one that flies backward and forward through history. If Celebi appears in a given year, it means that the future it came from is compatible with that past. The air is clean enough. The water is pure enough. The ecosystem is robust enough to sustain the complex energy of a time-space traveler. Celebi is the universe's way of checking its own work. It validates the trajectory of the world. A world where Celebi thrives is a world with a future. A forest where Celebi sings is a forest that will outlast its caretakers. When Celebi is absent for generations, it is a silent warning. The forest grows quiet. The shrine grows cold. The branch of time we are standing on has become unstable, prone to withering before it ever reaches its destination. Celebi does not just protect the forest, it embodies the forest's hope for tomorrow. Its song is the planet's confirmation that we are still walking a path worth saving. But Celebi, for all its guardianship, is active. It is awake, flying freely between the moments of history, always alert and always moving. Not all guardians of the timeline are born with such mobility. Some are bound to a very different kind of existence, a slumber so deep it measures its stillness not in hours or years, but in long unbroken centuries. A being that lies dormant not beneath the roots of a forest, but under the light of a passing star, holding a single wish in its chest for 1,000 years, waiting for the exact moment the heavens align to grant it. And that patient, dreaming power is the story we must follow next. The story of the 1,000-year sleeper. Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. Tonight, we shift from the gentle time traveler of the forest to a being whose relationship with time is far more severe. A creature bound to a cycle that makes even a single human lifetime seem nearly infinite in comparison. While Celebi moves through the ages as a guardian, appearing only when peace reigns, there is another mythical whose existence is governed by a different kind of rhythm. One measured not in the flow of events, but in the slow turning of a 1,000-year clock. This is the story of Jirachi, the 1,000-year sleeper. The legend is known across the Hoenn region, passed down through generations in hushed tones. It speaks of a star that falls from the sky, a wish granter that lies dormant in the depths of the earth, waiting for a comet to return. But the truth is far more profound and far more tragic than any simple fairy tale. Jirachi is one of the ancient firstborn, created by Arceus in the dawn of the universe. Born from a meteorite that plunged into a lake and carried within it a spark of cosmic consciousness. Yet its purpose came with an impossible price. For 11 months and 3 weeks out of the year, Jirachi's body is locked in a deep, crystalline sleep. Its form is small and childlike, with a golden body that shimmers like starlight. But its true nature is hidden. On its stomach lies the central organ that defines its existence, the so-called true eye. This eye remains closed during its slumber, sealed by a faint yellow membrane that resembles a sleeping eyelid. But when the Millennium Comet approaches Earth, once every 1,000 years, the eye opens, and for just 7 days, Jirachi awakens. This is the tragedy at the heart of its myth. Imagine a being that experiences a brief window of consciousness only once in a millennium. A full 1,000 years of unconsciousness, of silence, of floating in a dreamless void, and then a single week of awareness, of feeling, of thought. In that week, it must accomplish everything it was created for. It must absorb the energy of the comet through the true eye, channeling that power to manifest the wishes of those who find it. The true eye is more than just an organ of perception. It is a focal point for cosmic energy. When the Millennium Comet streaks across the sky, its light is not merely visible, it carries with it a raw, primordial force that Jirachi is designed to capture. The eye opens, and the comet's energy floods into it, converting hope and desire into tangible reality. The paper slips that people attach to Jirachi's head, the ones inscribed with wishes, become commands. The psychic power within it interprets those words and reshapes the world accordingly. But granting wishes is not a simple act of kindness. It is a burden, a responsibility that weighs heavily on a creature that has barely any time to even understand itself. Jirachi's psychic power is immense, perhaps one of the most potent of all mythical Pokémon, but it comes at a cost. Each wish realized requires a portion of that energy, and with only 7 days to replenish, the strain can be devastating. Some ancient texts hint that Jirachi has been exploited in the past, forced to grant wishes by those who sought to manipulate the comet's power for selfish ends. The creature is innocent, almost childlike in its demeanor, and that innocence makes it vulnerable. The legend also speaks of a darker side. If Jirachi is prevented from absorbing the comet's energy, if it is kept awake beyond its natural cycle, or forced to grant too many wishes, the true eye can turn red. The eye becomes a sign of distress, of imbalance. In that state, Jirachi's power becomes unstable, and the wishes it grants may twist into nightmares. That is why the ancient traditions surrounding it are so strict. why the ritual of the paper slips and the waiting period are observed with such reverence. To disrespect Jirachi is to invite chaos. Every 1,000 years, when the comet returns, there is a brief window where the boundary between dreams and reality grows thin. Jirachi's awakening is a cosmic event, a moment when the fabric of possibility is literally tied to the sky. And yet, for the creature itself, it is a fleeting existence. It spends its entire life in two extremes, an eternity of sleep and a heartbeat of waking. The tragedy is not just in the brevity, but in the loneliness. How many companions can it have known in its long life? How many humans have it met, and then outlived by centuries, only to return to sleep and wake again in a world that has forgotten it? The folklore of Hoenn tells that Jirachi can heal the hearts of those who are pure, that it can restore the environment and bring peace to troubled lands. But that peace is temporary. When the 7 days end, the comet moves on and Jirachi's eye closes once more. Its body begins to harden, a protective cocoon forming as it descends back into a deep slumber. It returns to the earth, to the lake or the cave where it was born, and waits. The stars continue to turn, civilizations rise and fall, but Jirachi remains suspended in time, dreaming for 1,000 years until the next passing. In some ways, Jirachi reflects the human desire for miracles, for the one perfect wish that can change everything. But it also reflects the cost. Every wish granted is a piece of consciousness spent, a moment of awareness that could have been used for something else. Perhaps that is why its myth is so haunting. It reminds us that even the most wondrous gifts come with strings attached. And that time, no matter how much we have, is never truly enough. When the comet finally returns to the sky, the cycle begins again. The eye opens, the comet's light streams in, and for one fragile week, Jirachi lives. It sees the world, it feels the emotions of those who come to it, and it does its best to make their dreams real. Then the veil of sleep falls, and the universe moves on without it, and we are left to wonder, what does 1,000 years of darkness feel like? And what does it mean to be a creature whose entire existence is measured in the span of a single calendar week, repeated only once in 40 generations of humanity? As we reflect on this lonely star, we might pause to consider the other visitors from beyond. Jirachi comes from a meteor, a comet, a falling star of hope. But there are other things that fall from the sky, things that do not carry wishes, but something far stranger and far more alien. The next chapter of this mythic journey will take us beyond the comfort of wish fulfillment and into the realm of something that arrived on a meteorite, with a purpose we still do not fully understand. The story of that being, the one born from a virus from outer space, is waiting to be told. But that is a tale for another night. For now, let the image of the sleeping star stay with you. The small golden figure resting beneath the earth, its eye sealed, its power dormant, patiently waiting for the return of a light that takes 1,000 years to arrive. From the gentle slumber of Jirachi, we now turn our gaze upward, past the canopy of trees and the clouds themselves, into the cold, silent void where no wish can be heard and no comet can grant it. There, drifting in the cosmic currents, something ancient and patient waited, not for a millennium, but for the right moment to fall. What fell was not a stone, not a shard of ice, not even a living creature in the way we understand life. It was a virus, a simple self-replicating strand of alien genetic material, adrift between stars for an unknowable span of time. It had no consciousness, no intention, no memory. It was only code, waiting for a host, waiting for a catalyst. And when it entered Earth's atmosphere, it found both. The year was not recorded in any Pokédex entry, but the event itself was seared into the planet's geological memory. As the virus-laden meteorite burned through the upper atmosphere, a beam of concentrated energy, a laser some say, from an unknown source, struck the debris. The precise origin of that laser remains a mystery. Some whisper it was a failed experiment from a secret laboratory, a weapon test aimed at the sky. Others believe it was a natural discharge of atmospheric energy, a lightning bolt of pure light. Whatever its source, the laser did not destroy the virus. it transformed it. In that split second of exposure, the alien genetic code was rewritten. The virus did not simply survive, it awakened. It absorbed the energy, rearranged its own structure, and became something that had never existed in any corner of the universe before. It became a Pokémon, but not one born of Arceus, not one shaped by the late Guardians, not one woven from the fabric of time or space. This was a being born of chance and radiation, an extraterrestrial virus mutated into a crystalline, sentient life form. Its name is Deoxys, and it arrived with no purpose but one: to survive. The first thing Deoxys did upon entering the biosphere was assess its environment. Its body, a cluster of red and blue organic crystals, pulsed with an unfamiliar light. It had no reference point, no instinctual knowledge of Earth's rules, but it had DNA, now hybridized with the planet's own genetic material, and that DNA carried a hidden power. Deoxys could adapt. It could change its form, its entire physiology, in response to threats. This was not evolution in the slow generational sense. This was instant, radical metamorphosis. Researchers who later studied Deoxys would identify 4 distinct configurations. The normal forme, a balanced bipedal shape with a slender torso and long, flexible limbs, serves as the baseline, a jack of all trades that can move and think and strike with equal efficiency. But when danger presses closer, Deoxys can shift into its attack form, where its body becomes leaner, its arms coiling into twin tentacles tipped with razor-sharp crystals. In this state, its offensive power skyrockets, but its defenses wither. Conversely, the defense forme causes its body to thicken and harden, plating itself in dense, armored segments that can withstand almost any blow, at the cost of speed and strength. And then there is the speed forme, a streamlined, almost aerodynamic shape that allows Deoxys to move faster than the eye can track, darting through the air like a shard of glass in a hurricane. Each form is a survival strategy. Each one is a response to an immediate threat. Deoxys does not choose its form consciously in the way a human chooses a tool. It is an instinctive reflex, a redirection of its molecular structure, a biological emergency override. This is the legacy of that laser strike, a creature that can rewrite its own body in real time, adapting to any battlefield, any environment, any enemy. And there was an enemy waiting for it. High above the planet, in the thin, cold layer of ozone that shields all life from the sun's radiation, a guardian had long claimed dominion. Rayquaza, the sky-high Pokémon, the serpent of the upper atmosphere, had patrolled the sky for eons, descending only to quell the battles of Kyogre and Groudon when their rage threatened to tear the world apart. Rayquaza's domain was the ozone layer, the boundary between Earth and the void. Nothing entered that space without its notice. When Deoxys descended, when its crystalline body breached the mesosphere, Rayquaza felt the intrusion. This was not a meteorite, not a comet, not a messenger. This was a trespasser, a foreign organism that had no place in the skies of its world, and Rayquaza did not hesitate. The clash that followed became legend. Deoxys, still disoriented from its transformation, found itself face to face with a massive, green dragon-like being, its body wreathed in orange and yellow bands, its jaws crackling with the energy of the atmosphere itself. Rayquaza did not shout a warning. It attacked. A hyper beam, condensed from the very air, lanced through the ozone and struck Deoxys head-on. But Deoxys adapted. In the blink of an eye, its body shifted into defense form, absorbing the blast with a shower of sparks. Then it changed again, into speed forme, and vanished from Rayquaza's sight. The battle moved through the sky like a storm, a dance of light and fury. Rayquaza's ancient power clashed against Deoxys' alien adaptability. The ozone layer rippled and tore, then healed, then tore again. It was a fight not for territory, not for pride, but for the fundamental question of who owned the boundary between Earth and the stars. No one witnessed the final outcome in full. Some say Rayquaza eventually drove Deoxys away, forcing the virus to retreat into the lower atmosphere, where it could hide in the deep ocean trenches. Others claim Deoxys simply tired of the conflict, that its adaptation had no need for endless combat, and it chose to vanish rather than win. What is known is that Deoxys survived. It is still out there, drifting, waiting, changing. Its presence raises a chilling question. If a virus, mutated by a laser, can become a mythical Pokémon with the power to reshape its own DNA, what else might be sleeping in the darkness beyond our world? And if Deoxys is only the first of its kind, what other cosmic codes wait for a spark to bring them to life? The answer may lie not in the sky, but beneath the waves, where another guardian of immense power has been waiting for a very different kind of visitor. That story, the tale of the Prince of the Sea, is one we will explore next. From the cold vacuum of space, we descend now into the crushing darkness of the ocean depths, where Deoxys arrived as an alien intruder, twisted by light and radiation. Another being emerges from the absolute opposite of that fiery birth. From stillness, from pressure, from the absolute zero of the seafloor. This is Manaphy, the Prince of the Sea, and its story is one of quiet, relentless movement across the entire world. Unlike Deoxys, whose origin is written in mutation and catastrophe, Manaphy's beginning is a ritual as old as the planet itself. It does not hatch from a warm nest or a sunlit reef. It is born from an egg laid in the cold, dark sediment of the deepest ocean trenches, where sunlight never reaches, where the weight of the water above is measured in thousands of atmospheres. And here is the peculiar truth. That egg is not produced by a parent Manaphy. No, Manaphy's reproductive cycle is unique among all known Pokémon. It is a solitary being, and yet it perpetuates its kind through a bond with another species entirely. The egg is formed when a Manaphy willingly shares its essence with a Ditto, a creature that can reshape its own genetic code to mirror others. Through that union, the egg is born, but the Manaphy does not nurture it. Instead, the egg is released into the abyssal currents, carried by the pressure gradients of the deep, until it settles on a cold seafloor vent or a plain of volcanic sediment. There it remains, dormant for an unknowable period. It is not guarded, it is not protected, it waits. But when the egg finally cracks open, the newborn Manaphy that emerges is not a helpless infant. It is already attuned to the pulse of the ocean itself. It possesses an innate ability to bond with any living creature, a power so pure that it can calm the most violent tempers and soothe the most distraught hearts. This is not learned behavior. It is an instinct woven into its very cells, and this ability is what allows Manaphy to fulfill its most profound role, the leader of the Great Migration. Every year, across every ocean, water-type Pokémon of all shapes and sizes feel a call. It is not a sound they hear, but a pressure change, a subtle shift in the magnetic field of the Earth, a whisper carried by the currents. And at the centre of that whisper is Manaphy. It swims in a vast circuit, crossing from the southern seas to the northern ice, from the coral kingdoms of the tropics to the kelp forests of the temperate zones. Behind it a procession forms, schools of Wishy-Washy, pods of Lapras, entire herds of Wailord, swarms of Remoraid, even the solitary Sharpedo. They follow not because of fear, not because of dominance, but because of something deeper, a resonance that tells them it is time to move, to feed, to breed, to survive. Manaphy does not command, it guides. It is the pulse of the ocean's heart. And this is where the bond with Kyogre becomes essential. Kyogre, the great beast of the primal seas, is not a ruler in the conventional sense. It is a force of nature, a being that can expand the oceans or withdraw them, that can summon storms that drown continents. Manaphy, for all its grace, cannot match that power, but it does not need to. In the hierarchy of the deep, Kyogre represents the raw, untamable will of the sea, the storm, the tide, the abyss. Manaphy, by contrast, is the spirit of the sea's life, its migration, its rhythm. They are not rivals. They are complementary halves of a single system. When Kyogre rages, it is Manaphy that calms the waters it stirs. When the great migration falters, it is Kyogre that reshapes the currents to allow the prince to pass. Some legends say that Manaphy was created specifically to temper Kyogre's fury, to give the ocean a gentle heart to balance its brutal strength. Others whisper that Manaphy is the only being Kyogre will listen to, that the two share a bond forged in the first dawn of the world, when the land was still molten and the seas were steam. But Manaphy's life is not eternal. Each cycle of migration, each journey around the globe, eventually takes its toll, and when a Manaphy grows old, it does not simply fade. It returns to the place of its birth, the cold seafloor trench where its egg once rested. There it releases its own essence into the currents, finding a ditto one last time, or perhaps just allowing the egg to form from the residue of its own fading life. And then it sinks, becoming part of the sediment, the very floor that gave it birth. The ocean does not mourn, it simply continues, and another egg will soon be carried by the abyssal currents, drifting through the darkness, waiting for the right moment to bring a new prince of the sea into the world. But there is another realm of shadow that does not move with the tides, a place where no water flows, where no migration passes, where the only sound is the echo of nightmares. In the northern sea, off the coast of Sinnoh, lies an island that appears on no map for most of the year. It is called Newmoon Island, and it is home to something that does not guide, does not heal, does not lead. Something born not from the cold of the deep, but from the cold of fear itself. That story, the one that waits in the darkness between moons, is the shadow we will follow next. From the cold depths of the ocean floor, where Manaphy draws its first breath, to the silent moonlit shores of an island that no map marks, we now turn our attention to a creature born not of water or light, but of fear itself. There is an island north of Sinnoh's mainland, shrouded in perpetual twilight, where the very fabric of sleep becomes a battleground. Its name is Newmoon Island, and it is home to Darkrai. To understand Darkrai, we must first understand the nature of nightmares, not as mere bad dreams, but as a defense mechanism, a living, breathing shroud of terror that this Pokemon radiates whether it wills it or not. Darkrai did not choose to be the embodiment of fear. It was born into that role, its body composed of shadow, its very presence a catalyst for the most vivid, horrifying visions imaginable. When humans or Pokemon fall asleep within its influence, they do not simply dream, they are pulled into a nightmare realm where every shadow hunts them, every memory twists into a threat, and there is no escape until dawn, or until Darkrai withdraws its influence. But here is the tragedy. Darkrai does not intend to cause suffering. Its power is an involuntary exhalation, a psychic aura that seeps from its form like mist from a frozen lake. It cannot turn it off, and because it cannot, it has been hunted, feared and exiled. The people of Sinnoh whisper tales of a cursed being that steals sleep and drives its victims to madness. They tell stories of sailors who never returned from the island, their ships found drifting with crews lost in catatonic terror, and so Darkrai withdrew, retreating to Newmoon Island, making it a fortress of isolation. It does not attack intruders out of malice. It only wants to be left alone. But its very presence is a prison, and every soul that dares come near is captured by the nightmare field before they even see its silhouette. Yet, there is one who can counter this darkness. Cresselia, the bringer of lunar wings and pleasant dreams, is the eternal opposite of Darkrai. Where Darkrai spreads nightmares, Cresselia grants peaceful sleep. Where Darkrai hides in shadow, Cresselia glides across the moonlit sky, trailing feathers that shimmer with soothing light. They are locked in a conflict as old as the myths of Sinnoh, a cosmic dance of fear and comfort, of terror and peace. It is said that when Darkrai's nightmares grow too strong, Cresselia appears to restore balance, chasing the darkness back to its island. Some folktales even claim that a fragment of Cresselia's feather, the lunar wing, can cure the most terrible nightmares, breaking Darkrai's hold over a tormented sleeper. But this is not a simple battle of good versus evil. Cresselia does not seek to destroy Darkrai, only to protect those who sleep. And Darkrai, for all its fearsome reputation, has never been truly malevolent. It is trapped in a role it never asked for. The nightmares are not weapons. They are a side effect of its existence. Think of a wildfire that burns through a forest, not because it wants to destroy, but because it is fire. Darkrai is the same, a force of nature, misunderstood and lonely. Its isolation is its only shield. On Newmoon Island, it paces the shores alone, watching the stars, knowing that any visitor will only scream and flee. It is a guardian, but a guardian of nothing but its own solitude. As we prepare to leave this shadow-draped island, there is another messenger waiting in the wings, one that carries not nightmares, but gratitude, a being whose very presence is a thank you whispered across time and space. We will meet it soon, in the chapter called The Messenger of Gratitude, where a single feather may be worth more than all the treasures of the earth. The nightmare-tainted shores of Newmoon Island stand as a permanent reminder of Darkrai's curse, a place where even the bravest trainers fear to tread. But not all of Sinnoh's hidden sanctuaries are cloaked in shadow. Beyond the jagged peaks and the restless seas, there lies a valley that breathes, a place where the air itself seems to hum with a quiet restorative power. It is here, far from the torment of endless sleep, that the messenger of gratitude makes its home. Shaymin is often dismissed as one of the smallest mythical beings, a creature no larger than a hedgehog, with a body of soft white fur and a crown of pink petals. But to underestimate Shaymin is to misunderstand the very fabric of life it protects. This Pokémon does not command time or space, nor does it speak from the depths of the ocean. Instead, it works in silence, in the slow, patient process of healing the world from within. Its gift is not power but restoration. Deep within the mountainous regions of Sinnoh, there are stretches of land that have been scarred by volcanic ash, poisoned by industrial runoff, or left barren by drought. In such places, life has become impossible. The soil is too acidic, the water too foul, the air too thick with pollutants to support even the hardiest weeds. But Shaymin possesses a remarkable ability. It can absorb those very toxins, pulling them from the atmosphere and the ground as easily as a sponge draws in water. The molecules of sulfur, carbon monoxide and heavy metals are filtered through its tiny body and transformed, converted into clean energy and pure oxygen. Wherever Shaymin travels, the air sweetens, the earth softens, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the first green shoots begin to break through the dead crust. This is not a dramatic, flashy power. There is no beam of light, no roaring explosion. It is the slow return of colour to a grey world. A single Shaymin can reclaim a valley in a season, transforming a wasteland into a meadow of wildflowers and tall grasses. And when it does, it leaves behind something far more precious than just healthy soil. It leaves a promise that even the most broken places can be reborn. But there is a deeper mystery to this creature, one that has puzzled researchers and storytellers for generations. The typical Shaymin, the one most people recognise, is a small land-bound hedgehog form. Yet there exists another shape, a form that is sleek, swift and almost canine, known as Sky Form. This transformation is not triggered by battle or evolution. It is tied to a single fragile flower, the Gracidea. The Gracidea flower is rare, blooming only in specific high-altitude meadows under the light of the early summer sun. Its petals are a deep crimson, almost blood red, and it holds a chemical property that is uniquely attuned to Shaymin's biology. When a Shaymin comes into contact with a Gracidea, or when the flower's essence is concentrated into a simple tool, a Gracidea flower, the Pokémon undergoes a rapid, almost instantaneous metamorphosis. Its body lengthens, its ears flatten, and delicate tufts of fur emerge from its back, allowing it to ride the wind currents with the grace of a swallow. In Sky Form, Shaymin becomes a creature of incredible speed and agility, able to travel hundreds of miles in a single day, spreading seeds and purifying the air as it goes. Why this transformation exists is a matter of ancient legend. Some believe the Gracidea was a gift from the land itself, a way for Shaymin to fulfill its purpose during the brief blooming season when the winds are most favourable for spreading life across the continent. Others whisper that the flower is the source of Shaymin's power, not merely a trigger. Without the Gracidea, a Shaymin remains earthbound, its abilities limited to its immediate vicinity. With it, it becomes a messenger, a courier of renewal that can cross entire regions in hours. It is a beautiful, symbiotic relationship. The flower gives the Pokémon wings, and the Pokémon gives the world back its green. This connection between Shaymin and the Gracidea is not just a biological curiosity. It is woven into the very fabric of Sinnoh's cultural history. Long before the region was known for its sprawling cities and advanced technology, the people who lived in the shadow of Mount Coronet observed Shaymin's annual migration. They noticed that when the Gracidea bloomed, the land would flourish, and when the flowers faded, the winds would change. Over centuries, a tradition emerged known as the flower-picking ceremony. This ceremony was not a simple harvest. It was a ritual of gratitude. Families would climb to the high meadows, usually under the guidance of a village elder, and carefully gather a single Gracidea bloom. They would not pick more than one, or to take too many was believed to anger the spirit of the valley. The flower was then carried back to the village and placed on a small shrine, often carved from stone or wood, dedicated to the Pokémon who watched over the land. There, the community would offer thanks for the clean air, the fertile soil, and the abundance of life. It was a quiet, humble act, a recognition that their survival depended on forces they could not control, forces embodied in the small hedgehog that passed through their lands once a year. The flower-picking ceremony faded from common practice as Sinnoh modernized, but echoes of it remain in the region's folklore. Some say that on the night of the first summer full moon, if you listen closely in the high meadows, you can hear the whisper of petals brushing against wind, and if you are truly lucky, you might see a white shape with a crimson flower in its wake, racing across the stars. Shaymin's role as the messenger of gratitude is not about being thanked. It is about reminding us that every breath of clean air, every field of wildflowers, every return of spring is a gift. And gifts, when they are received with a pure heart, are meant to be passed on. The Gracidea flower is not a tool to be hoarded. It is a key, a way to unlock the full potential of a being that exists solely to heal. But what happens when that healing is no longer needed? When the world has been restored and there is no more waste to cleanse, no more barren land to reclaim, what then becomes of the messenger? Perhaps that is the true mystery of the Gracidea, not the transformation itself, but the purpose it serves in a world that is always inevitably in need of renewal. And if the creator of all things, the being who set the stars in motion and wove the fabric of time and space, were to judge the worth of every mythical creature, where would Shaymin stand? Would gratitude be enough? Would restoration count as a virtue in the eyes of the one who made existence itself? The answers lie ahead, in the shadow of a judgment that has not yet fallen. But first, we must turn our gaze to the very beginning, to the moment before creation, to the being who has never needed a flower or a prayer, because it is the source of all that can be prayed for. Our next chapter is the judgment of the Creator. The purifying touch of Shaymin healed the wounds of the earth, dissolving toxins and coaxing flowers from barren soil. It is a grace note in a much larger symphony, a reminder that life can always reclaim its space. But for life to have a space to reclaim, someone had to draw the very boundaries of existence. Someone had to look into the void and decide what would be. That someone is Arceus. Arceus is known as the original one, the being that rose from chaos and shaped the universe. But the creation of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina was only the first draft. Arceus wanted to ensure it could interact with every facet of its creation, to judge every corner of reality on its own terms. To do this, it cast off pieces of its own form, fragments of pure elemental energy. These became the life plates. There are 16 plates in total, corresponding to every known type. When Arceus draws a plate into its body, it fundamentally rewrites its own nature. It is not just learning a move, it is becoming the essence of that element. It can turn its body to ice, its breath to fire, its will to the spectral realm. This adaptability is not a tool for battle alone. It is the ability of a creator to inspect every detail of its work, to experience the universe from every possible angle, before rendering a final decree. This brings us to humanity's greatest failing, and to Arceus' deepest recorded sorrow, the betrayal of Machina Town. Long ago, a fragment of Arceus known as the Jewel of Life was entrusted to the people of Machina. It was a collection of plates, a piece of the Creator's own soul, given to nurture the land and sustain the people. The human Deimos was chosen as the steward, the keeper of the promise. But a man named Marcus, driven by fear of Arceus' absolute power, used dark hypnosis to corrupt Deimos' will. When Arceus returned to reclaim its jewel, Deimos refused. The trust was shattered. The bargain was broken. Arceus did not simply destroy Machina in a fit of rage. It felt the sting of betrayal deep within its core, a wound more profound than any meteor strike. Wounded physically and spiritually, it withdrew into a deep slumber, its judgment delayed, but never cancelled. When it finally awoke, centuries later, its eyes looked upon humanity not with the warmth of a creator, but with the cold, terrible patience of a prosecutor demanding an answer. Are you worthy? The wrath of a god seeking its stolen essence is not a storm of lightning and thunder. It is a silence. A silent, terrible focusing of intent that weighs upon the very fabric of time. This sets the stage for Arceus' ultimate role in the cosmic hierarchy. It is not just a creator, and it is certainly not a passive observer. Arceus is the final judge of humanity's worthiness to coexist with Pokémon. The very structure of reality, the balance of time and space, the flow of willpower and knowledge, all of it serves this grand test. The Lake Guardians were not created for decoration. Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf were placed in the world to temper the raw power of the creation trio, to keep the universe stable so this judgment could take place. In the ancient past, humanity failed the first test. Trust was broken. In the present, Arceus offers a trial. In the Hisui region, the player character is pulled through a rift in time, not to become a champion of the land, but to complete the very first Pokédex. This act, this documentation of all life, is the trial itself. Arceus watches. It inspects. It decides if humanity has finally learned to live alongside Pokémon, to understand them rather than to simply dominate them. Every mythical we have discussed is a single piece of evidence in this cosmic court. Mew shows our potential to understand genetics and life itself. Celebi shows our relationship with time. Jirachi shows the purity of our hopes. Darkrai shows the depth of our fears. Arceus sits above them all as the ultimate arbiter, the final authority on whether humanity deserves to share this planet as a partner or merely as a tenant. Arceus defined the worthiness of coexistence, but the will to prove it, the drive to fight for that shared future, does not come from the creator alone. It must be sparked from within. That spark, that unyielding force that turns the battle and defines the champion, is a current of pure potential waiting to be ignited. It is the energy of victory. The previous chapter ended with the judgment of the creator, Arceus reclaiming its stolen plates, a god reasserting its absolute dominion over the very forces of reality. It was a story of power reclaimed through cosmic wrath. But there exists a different kind of power in this world. Not the authority of a creator, but the absolute certainty of a victor. This is the story of the energy of victory, a power so pure and yet so dangerous. It was ultimately locked away on an island sanctuary, waiting for a trainer who could understand its true nature. Victini is known as the Victory Pokémon. It is a small creature, barely over a foot tall, with soft yellow fur and a bright orange V-shaped tuft on its head that resembles a flickering flame. But that tuft is no mere decoration. It is the source of its immense power. Victini produces an infinite amount of energy within its body. Ancient texts often describe this wellspring as a star's core, contained within a fragile vessel. It does not tire. It does not deplete. It is perpetual motion given form. In the modern era, scientists have tried to study this phenomenon, but Victini's energy defies conventional physics. It seems to draw on something beyond matter and antimatter. It draws on potential itself. The very idea of victory is converted into tangible power. It shares this boundless energy freely with any trainer it truly trusts, creating a symbiotic link of pure potential. The legend is explicit in its absolute nature. It states that any trainer who befriends Victini cannot lose a battle, not that their odds are increased, not that they have a powerful ally, cannot lose. It is a guarantee that overrides the very uncertainty that defines combat. Think about the weight of that legend. Every fight in the Pokémon world is a test of strategy, bond and will. Vigor, planning and trust all factor into the outcome, but Victini shatters that equation. With this Pokémon by your side, failure is no longer a possibility. Your victory is predetermined. This single truth has cast a long and dark shadow over history. Long before the modern era of Pokémon trainers, the ancient kings of the Unova region sought this very power. They understood what any ruler knows. Victory is everything. An empire built on a series of victories is a dynasty. One defeat can shatter 1,000 years of conquest overnight. Armies were sent across the seas. Expeditions were launched into the wilderness. Scribes and spies scoured the land for the victory Pokémon. They did not want to befriend it. They wanted to use it. They saw it not as a living creature, but as a weapon, a strategic asset that could guarantee total global conquest without the risk of loss. The darkest chapters of Unova's history, the wars that are barely whispered about in the textbooks of the Pokémon League, are all connected to this relentless pursuit. The search for Victini scorched the earth. Kingdoms burned for a chance to capture the uncapturable, but Victini is elusive. It does not allow itself to be claimed by the greedy or the tyrannical. It waits for a trainer of pure heart, a trainer who seeks victory not for domination, but for the sheer joy of the journey. Eventually, to protect itself and the world from its own power, Victini withdrew. It settled on a beautiful secluded island off the coast of what would one day become Castellius City. This island was named Liberty Garden. It is a paradox, a prison of peace, a cage for infinite energy. Here Victini lives, surrounded by flowers and eternal sunshine. The island is a paradise, but it is also a cage of destiny. Victini is waiting. It is waiting for the one trainer who can resist the temptation of its power, the one who would be its friend, not its commander. Every few generations, an ambitious trainer finds their way to Liberty Garden. They receive the Liberty Pass, a token of passage. They climb the lighthouse, they enter the garden, and they meet Victini. And almost universally, they fail the test, not because Victini is strong, but because the trainer's heart is revealed. They want the guarantee, they want the cheat code. And Victini, reading this desire, simply refuses the bond. It cannot be claimed, it can only be joined. The legend of victory is a double-edged sword. The very power that draws the ambitious to Victini is the one thing that repels the virtuous. The ethical dilemma at the heart of this myth is profound. Is a guaranteed victory truly a victory at all? If you cannot fail, is success ever earned? Victini understands this on a fundamental level. It knows that its gift is also a curse. By removing the chance of failure, it drains the meaning from the triumph. The bond between a trainer and their Pokémon is forged in the fires of adversity. Shared struggles deepen the connection. Victini, by its very nature, would extinguish that fire. The tragedy is that the very thing that makes Victini so desirable is the exact thing that prevents most from ever earning its trust. The path to true victory cannot be paved with shortcuts. Victini embodies the energy of victory, but the world of Unova is one of ideals. Truth versus ideals. Victory versus justice. A sword versus an energy. Our journey now turns from the power of the victor to the discipline of the sword. The story of a Pokémon who does not simply guarantee victory, but fights for it, earns it, and teaches it through a strict code of honor. This is the tale of the fourth Sword of Justice. Victini's infinite energy had lured empires into dreams of conquest, yet that same power was never meant to be a weapon. It was a force of pure victory, a promise that those who fought for justice would never be defeated. And in the Unova region, that idea of justice found its embodiment not in a single Pokémon, but in a fellowship, a band of four swords sworn to protect the weak, to stand against tyranny, and to teach a young colt what it truly meant to become a blade. Before Keldeo ever wielded the secret sword, it was nothing more than a vulnerable water type, a young Pokémon born on the grassy plains, far from the ruins and battles that defined its mentors. It wandered without purpose, too small to face the dangers that prowled the forests, until it stumbled upon a clearing where three figures stood like stone sentinels. Cobalion, the Iron Will; Terrakion, the unbreakable rock; Virizion, the graceful verdant edge. They were the swords of justice, legendary protectors, who had once risen against human cruelty, who had bound themselves to a code that demanded strength in service of the voiceless. And when they saw Keldeo, they did not see a stray. They saw a spark that could be forged into a fourth blade. Keldeo's journey to join the Swords of Justice was not about a test of combat alone. It was about understanding what justice truly demanded. Cobalion taught discipline, the stillness of a mind that never wavers. Terrakion taught power, the raw force needed to shatter chains. Virizion taught grace, the subtlety of a strike that moves like wind. But none of them could teach Keldeo the final lesson, the one that would transform his ordinary form into something resolute. That lesson belonged to the secret sword, a technique passed down through legend, a move that required not just mastery of body, but mastery of heart. The secret sword is not a physical attack, it is an embodiment of purpose. To execute it, Keldeo had to abandon all doubt, to become a living extension of the very idea of protection. It meant shedding the fear of a cult and becoming the certainty of a knight. And in that transformation, Keldeo's mane flared, its features sharpened, and it entered the resolute form, a form that declared to the world, "I am no longer the one who needs saving, I am the one who saves." But this form cannot be held forever. It is born only from the moment of absolute focus, when the sword and the will become one. And when it fades, Keldeo returns to its ordinary shape. Still the same Pokémon, still carrying the same heart, but now knowing that the power is always there, waiting for the call. From a vulnerable colt on the plains to a sworn protector of the oppressed, Keldeo's story reminds us that even the smallest among us can rise to stand beside legends. It is not birthright that makes a sword of justice. It is the choice to fight for others, to endure the trials of training, and to hold firm when the world turns cruel. And yet, there is another tale whispered among the ruins of the Unova region, one that does not speak of blades or battles, but of a melody that can change the very nature of a Pokémon, a song so ancient that it was carved into stone, a relic of a time when music held power over mind and body. That melody belongs to Meloetta, and its secret is about to be uncovered in the chapter ahead. The melody of the Relic song. Keldeo had finally earned its place among the Swords of Justice, standing alongside Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion as a guardian of the defeated and the lost. But while those four turned their gaze toward the protection of Pokémon in need, another kind of power was stirring far from the battlefields. Not a power of blade or hoof, but of voice and rhythm, a power that had once woven the fabric of entire civilizations, binding people together in shared joy, and then, when it vanished, left them hollow and cold. Long before any human kingdom raised its first stone, before the myths of time and space were carved into tablets, there existed a melody that did not simply please the ear. It shaped the soul. This melody was not written by any composer or performed by any instrument. It came from a single being, a Pokémon, whose very body vibrated with the resonance of creation. That being was Meloetta, and its song was known as the Relic song. Meloetta's history stretches back to the dawn of human culture, when the first tribes gathered around fires and tried to make sense of the world through rhythm and chant. It is said that Meloetta appeared to these early peoples, not as a creature to be captured or worshipped, but as a muse. It would descend from the sky on moonlit nights, or emerge from the heart of ancient forests, and begin to sing. Its voice could dissolve sorrow, ignite courage, and inspire movements that no mere speech ever could. The greatest songs and dances of the ancient world, the epics sung across continents, the sacred dances performed in hidden temples, all trace their origin back to this one Pokémon. Meloetta did not teach notes or steps. It poured a feeling into the air, and humans, in their raw creativity, translated that feeling into art. The aria forme of Meloetta, slender and elegant, with a flowing mane of music note hair, was the vessel of this pure expression. In that form, Meloetta's voice carried the warmth of a lullaby and the power of a war chant all at once. It could heal the wounded with a single phrase and ignite the spirit of an army with a crescendo. But there was a second form, one that emerged only when Meloetta chose to channel its energy into action. The pirouette forme transformed the singer into a dancer, its body compact and quick, its movements a blur of spinning kicks and graceful leaps. This shift was not a matter of battle strategy alone. It was the physical manifestation of the melody itself, as if the song had become flesh and decided to move. The mechanical shift between aria and pirouette forms during musical performances was a thing of breathtaking beauty. Imagine a concert where the lights dim, the air shivers, and suddenly the singer is no longer standing still, but whirling across the stage, each step a note, each turn a chord. Those who witnessed it said they could feel the music in their bones, as if their own hearts had been tuned to the same frequency. But a melody this powerful cannot remain pure forever. The human heart, for all its capacity for wonder, also holds a deep well of selfishness. Over centuries, as civilizations grew and empires rose, the original purpose of Meloetta's song began to fade. People no longer gathered to celebrate life or to heal. They gathered to possess, to own the voice that made them feel powerful, to control the dance that brought them glory. Kings demanded performances to show off their wealth. Armies marched to recordings of the Relic song, believing it would make them invincible. The song was no longer a gift, it became a tool, and so Meloetta withdrew. Not in anger, but in sorrow. It could feel the change in the human heart, the loss of pure wonder, the replacement of awe with greed. The melody that once filled the air began to dim, like a candle running out of wax. And with the loss of its melody, something fundamental shifted in the human world. The dance of life became mechanical. Songs lost their magic. People stopped moving to rhythms they could not explain. The arts became hollow imitations of what they had once been. A shadow settled over the ancient cultures that had flourished under Meloetta's inspiration, and that shadow never fully lifted. The darkening of the human heart was not a sudden fall, but a slow erosion, a forgetting of something precious. The Relic song itself still exists, buried deep within Meloetta's being, waiting to be sung again. But it can only be released when the singer chooses to trust, when the listener is willing to receive without trying to take. Those who have heard it in recent centuries describe it as a sound that feels both ancient and new, a melody that knows your name before you know it yourself. Tonight, as we let this story settle, consider the silence that follows a song. What fills the space when the music ends? For Meloetta, that silence became centuries of loneliness. But perhaps, somewhere in the quiet of your own mind, the echo of that ancient melody still lingers, waiting for the right moment to be remembered. Up next, we turn our attention to a project that sought to reclaim something from the distant past, a plan so audacious it would reshape the very definition of life itself. That is Chapter 21, the Paleozoic Project. The fading of Meloetta's song was not just the loss of a voice. It was a signal that the world was tilting away from the warmth of harmony and toward an age of calculated ambition. The melody that once inspired the human heart was replaced by a different kind of rhythm, the cold pulse of machinery and the silent hum of a weapon charging. While the heart grew dark from the loss of music, a very different kind of resurrection was already taking place in a sterile laboratory far beneath the surface of Unova, deep in the crust of the region, in a fossil bed that predates the age of mammals, the dinosaurs, and even the great swamps of primordial time. There lay a predator, a hunter from the Paleozoic era, 300 million years removed from the surface world. This was an apex insect, built by prehistoric evolution to be the perfect killer of its age. When the scientists of Team Plasma uncovered these remains, they did not see a wonder of natural history. They saw a template, a blank slate upon which to engrave their vision of absolute control. The revival of an ancient apex predator by Team Plasma scientists was designated the Paleozoic Project, using technology that blurred the line between miracle and monstrosity. They pulled the creature from the stone, but the fossil revived was fragile. It was a ghost in the modern world, out of place and out of time. Its chitin was brittle, its instincts confused by the unfamiliar environment. That would not do. The scientists did not want a museum piece. They wanted a weapon. They wanted a soldier that could enforce the will of Team Plasma with unstoppable force. So they began the cybernetic augmentations that turned a biological fossil into the weaponized Genesect. They replaced missing chitin with reinforced steel plating. They rewired its primitive nervous system with high-speed circuits and cables. And finally, they mounted a powerful cannon directly onto its back, a fusion of paleobiology and hyper-advanced technology. 4 interchangeable drives were created, each one altering the elemental nature of the cannon to adapt to any opponent. It was no longer just an ancient bug. It was a living tank, a cybernetic soldier, programmed for absolute obedience and overwhelming firepower. But in the rush to create the ultimate weapon, no one stopped to consider the state of its soul, the tragedy of a creature displaced by 300 million years. Seeking a home that no longer exists is the silent horror at the core of Genesect's existence. Imagine waking from a dream that lasted eons to find your entire world erased. The dense, steaming forests of the Paleozoic are compressed into thin layers of coal deep underground. The oxygen-rich air that filled its primal lungs is gone, placed by a thin, modern atmosphere that feels wrong in its ancient respiratory system. The stars in the sky have shifted into alien constellations. The landscapes are wrong. The scents are wrong. It acts on instinct, hunting for prey that has been extinct for longer than humanity has existed. It waits for a chemical signal from its swarm that will never come. It stands on a battlefield, holding a weapon, but the war it was born to fight ended long before time had a name. The earth beneath its feet is the same planet, but it is a stranger in its own home. The cannon on its back gives it power, but the power has no context. It is a key that fits a lock that has rusted away into dust. Genesect is the ultimate soldier, but it is also the ultimate orphan. It has no nest to return to, no swarm to lead, no ecosystem that understands its place. The cannon is a crown, and the crown is a cage. Team Plasma gave it a purpose, but they robbed it of its context. It is a living fossil armed with the future, wandering a present that has no memory of its past. It looks at a trainer, and it obeys, because that is what it was built to do. But deep in the silicon and the ancient ganglia, there is a static hum, a whisper of a home that smells of rain on prehistoric ferns, a whisper that leads nowhere. This is the legacy of the Paleozoic Project, a creature ripped from the deep past, augmented to be a monster of the modern age. Yet for all its firepower, it remains a silent, searching soul. Its antennae twitch, picking up signals that lead to nothing. It waits for a command, but the deepest command it feels is an echo from 300 million years ago, a command to survive in a world that no longer exists. If Genesect represents the weaponization of history, a mind burdened by the weight of a lost world, the next chapter explores a different kind of creation entirely. It is the story of a being born, not from ancient stone, but from the very desire to possess a soul, a machine built with a singular, desperate purpose, to hold and cherish a heart that was never meant to beat. That story is written in the language of the Soul-Heart of Azoth, and it asks the unsettling question of what happens when a creation begins to dream of being real. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. Team Plasma attempted to rewrite the laws of nature, forging a weapon from the bones of an ancient predator. But their act of creation was not the first of its kind, and certainly not the most profound. Centuries before their cold laboratories hummed with the stolen energy of a fossil, another mind, a genius of a wholly different caliber, looked upon the world and saw not a problem to be solved with force, but a mystery to be yielded through metal and will. He wanted to build a companion, a being that could serve without question, yet remain something more than an empty shell, and his success would redefine what it meant to have a soul. 500 years ago, a kingdom stood in need of hope, not a weapon to strike down its enemies, but a guardian, a servant, a symbol of a new age of peace. The reigning royal family of this ancient land understood that a monument of stone would crumble, and a knight of flesh would eventually falter. They required something eternal. They commissioned a scientist of unparalleled brilliance, a visionary whose name history has largely swallowed, though his creation remains. He built Majana. The scientist did not capture a wild being and bind it to his will. He did not resurrect an ancient predator from amber and steel, as Team Plasma would one day attempt. He built his creation from scratch, gears meshed with porcelain, steel joints flexed with impossible precision. It was a masterpiece of engineering, a testament to human ingenuity. But a machine cannot fulfill its duties if it has no spark. It cannot love a child, or comfort a queen, or sense the sickness creeping into a kingdom's heart without something deeper inside it. The scientist knew this. He needed to give it a soul, and so he devised the Soul-Heart, an artificial soul, a core of impossible complexity, powered not by electricity or steam, but by a principle the ancients called Azoth. This was not merely a battery. It was the essence of life itself, distilled into a contained and perpetual engine of consciousness. The process required to create this core was the scientist's greatest triumph and his most carefully guarded secret. To awaken the Soul-Heart to truly make Magana live, he had to sacrifice something in return. The Soul-Heart was forged from the life energy of other Pokémon. Their vitality, their emotions, their very will to exist was extracted, cleansed, and bound into a metallic prison. It was not an act of malice, the scattered records suggest, but one of absolute necessity. The scientist wept for every creature that passed, believing the end result. A being capable of watching over an entire kingdom and healing its wounds justified the cost. His gamble succeeded. Perhaps it succeeded too well. The Soul-Heart did not merely animate Majana, it awakened it into a profound and terrible sensitivity. The machine could feel. It could perceive the emotions and the physical pain of everyone within its reach. Every flicker of joy in a child's heart, every shadow of sorrow in a widow's eyes, the dull ache of a wounded soldier, the sharp sting of a betrayal. Majana could not turn this off. Its very consciousness was a mirror reflecting the entire emotional landscape of the kingdom. It could read a body's ailments as easily as a human reads a book, sensing a fever before it broke, detecting a broken bone beneath the skin. The royal family had asked for a servant. What they received was a being of profound empathy, a living guardian forced to carry the burdens of an entire population within its metal chest. For centuries, Majana walked among the people, healing where it could, offering quiet companionship where healing was impossible. It did not age. It did not tire. It simply endured the constant stream of the kingdom's sorrow, trying to turn it into something good. Is it purely a machine, or is it a Pokémon in the truest sense? A creature of flesh and spirit given form through science. The distinction between natural life and artificial creation blurs completely with Magana. Unlike Genesect, which was a living creature twisted and augmented by cold metal, Majana was born from a blank slate. Its only reference for what it meant to exist was the pain and beauty it read from the world around it. It learned to care because the beings around it cared. It learned to grieve because they grieved. Its steel body held a heart made entirely of borrowed light. And yet, for all its power, the Soul-Heart of Azoth had a single defining limitation. Majana could only perceive and react to the suffering of others. It could heal wounds, But could it ever truly understand the shape of a completely broken soul? Azoth gave the metal form a voice, but it was a voice that echoed the emotions of others. It was a hollow, beautiful imitation of life, sustained by the essence of the lives that came before it. The history of the Kalos region is written in blood. A war fought 3,000 years ago left a scar on the very fabric of reality, a wound that did not heal with time. The dead did not simply vanish into the earth. Their pain, their terror, their final moments of despair had nowhere to go. It pooled in the shadows of the battlefield. It festered in the forgotten corners of ruined castles. And over centuries, this concentrated grief coalesced. It took shape, not a machine built with a purpose, but a shadow born from complete and utter loss. A creature that did not need an artificial soul to feel the darkness of the world, because it was made of that darkness alone, the Gloomdweller of War. As Majana's artificial heart pulses within its mechanical chest, a far older and far more terrible soul stirs somewhere between the living world and the forgotten dead. For every light casts a shadow, and every great war leaves behind a stain that no amount of time can wash away. In the Kalos region, 3,000 years ago, a conflict of such magnitude erupted that the earth itself seemed to burn. Peasants, knights, kings, all thrown into the inferno of the Great Kalos War, a clash that consumed entire kingdoms and left the land scarred with ash and sorrow. And in that fire, something else was born, not from flesh, not from metal, but from the space between flame and darkness, where the last breath of the dying meets the endless silence of what comes after. Marshadow did not emerge from an egg, nor from the hand of a creator. It was not summoned by a scientist's formula or a god's command. It simply was, where the fires of war cast their deepest shadows, beneath collapsed towers, inside the hollows of burned forests, in the eyes of soldiers whose souls had already departed. There, the Gloomdweller took shape. It is the embodiment of every unspoken fear, every final scream that never found an ear. In the chaos of battle, when combatants are locked in the frenzy of survival, Marshadow watches. It does not attack. It does not interfere. It only observes, recording every motion, every strike, every desperate dodge, and then, when the night grows still, it steps into the silence and begins to move. You see, Marshadow possesses a terrifying gift. It can mimic the movements and strength of any opponent it has observed. But this is not mere imitation like a child copying a dance. It is a perfect, almost spectral replication of the fighter's own power, as if Marshadow has reached into the very soul of the combatant and pulled forth a ghostly reflection. When it fights, it does so with the accumulated skill of every warrior who ever fell in that ancient war. Every parry, every lunge, every desperate technique honed over millennia of bloodshed is etched into its being. And yet Marshadow never shows this power openly. It hides in the shadows of its opponent, always one step behind, always watching. It is the ultimate silent observer, the ghost of war itself, waiting for the moment to reveal what it has learned. But there is one technique that sets Marshadow apart from all others, a move so powerful and so deeply tied to the afterlife that it has earned a name spoken only in whispers. The soul-stealing 7-star strike. This is no ordinary attack. It is a sequence of 7 blows, each one aimed not at the body, but at the connection between the soul and the living world. The first strike loosens the tether, the second weakens the will, the third, fourth, and fifth tear through the spiritual fabric that holds a being together. By the sixth, the opponent's consciousness begins to slip into a dark tunnel, and the seventh, the final star, rends the soul from its vessel entirely, dragging it into the void from which there is no return. Legends say that those who have witnessed this technique describe a sensation of absolute cold, as if the warmth of life itself had been sucked out of the room. Marshadow does not kill in the way a predator kills. It simply separates what we are from what we hold, and sends the former into the endless shadow it calls home. This connection to the afterlife is no accident. The Gloomdweller is not just a creature born from war. It is a guardian of the border between existence and non-existence, Some ancient texts refer to Marshadow as the Warden of the Fallen, a being that collects the souls of those who died without peace and guides them or traps them. In a realm of perpetual twilight, when the soul-stealing 7-star strike is used, it is as if Marshadow opens a door to that realm, letting the darkness flood through and claim what it believes is rightfully its own. And yet there is a paradox. Despite its grim origin, Marshadow is not malicious. It does not seek to destroy for pleasure. It acts according to a law older than any human code, a law that says every conflict must leave behind a memory, and every shadow must have a keeper. But what happens when the keeper becomes curious about the light? What happens when the Gloomdweller, having watched countless battles, begins to wonder what it might feel like to be the one holding the sword, rather than the one standing in its shade? Perhaps that is why Marshadow will sometimes emerge from hiding, not to fight, but to learn. It follows trainers who have seen true hardship, who carry within them the embers of their own inner wars. And in those rare partnerships, Marshadow teaches something profound. That the greatest strength is not in the strike, but in the understanding of what the strike means. That victory and loss are two sides of the same coin, and that the coin itself is forged in the fires of conflict. As the embers of the Great Kalos War have long since cooled, Marshadow remains. It moves through the world like a breath of cold air, always present but rarely felt. It is the shadow that flinches when you raise your hand, the stillness that follows a sudden noise in the dark. And if you ever find yourself standing in the silence of an ancient battlefield, with the wind carrying the faint scent of ash and iron, listen closely, for in the corner of your eye, just beyond the reach of moonlight, there may be a flicker, a pair of eyes, dark as deep water, watching, measuring, learning, and somewhere in that gaze, the first star of 7 begins to align. And when that moment passes, as all moments must, the shadow will turn its attention elsewhere, perhaps to a jungle where thunder never stops rolling, where lightning dances through the canopy like a living thing, and where a creature of pure electric fury waits for something worth its attention. The Gloomdweller knows that war is not the only force that shapes the world. Sometimes it is the wild, untamed lightning that reminds us of the raw power still sleeping in the forgotten corners of the earth. And soon that power will speak. The narrative of the previous chapter brought us into the shadows cast by the fires of the Great War of Kalos. We explored Marshadow, born from the fear and rage of that conflict, a silent observer lurking in the darkness, mirroring every movement of those it watched. But where there are shadows, there must also be light. Or rather, in the dense, verdant canopy of a world far from the battlefields of Kalos, there exists a force that is less a creature of stillness and more a thunderclap given form, the lightning that briefly banishes the dark. This is the legend of the thunderclap of the jungle, Zeraora. To understand Zeraora, one must first understand what it is not. It is not, as so many believe, a creature that generates electricity within its own body, in the way that a Pikachu or an Elekid might. There is no internal organ dedicated to the creation of electric charges, no biological battery that it slowly fills over time. Its unique biology is a profound mystery to those who study it, a paradox of power that defies easy classification. It lacks an internal electricity-generating organ entirely. Instead, what Zeraora possesses is something far more remarkable, a biological system designed to attract, absorb, and redirect energy from the world around it. Think of it less as a generator and more as a living lightning rod, a conduit between the earth and the sky. It dwells in the deepest, most untamed regions of the jungle, a territory where the canopy is so thick that the ground below exists in a perpetual twilight. The air is heavy, damp, and always humming with a low, barely audible frequency. And it is in this twilight, this humid electric atmosphere, that Zeraora truly comes alive. The jungles Zeraora calls home are subject to intense seasonal storms. When clouds gather and the very air begins to crackle with static, Zeraora climbs to the highest branches of the tallest trees. It waits. The The secret to its incredible speed lies not in muscles alone, but in the mastery of electromagnetism. When a lightning strike is imminent, the air around Zeraora becomes highly charged. Using its body as a sophisticated antenna, it manipulates the magnetic fields that suffuse its environment. It does not just run with the lightning. It relies on external magnetic fields and lightning strikes to reach its high-speed mobility. It rides the electrical currents of its home. It creates localized pockets of magnetic repulsion that propel it forward at velocities that tear across the landscape in an instant. It is a flash of light, a crack of thunder, and it is already gone. Its limbs, tipped with formidable claws, are not just weapons but tools for grounding and directing these immense forces. When it strikes, it focuses the absorbed energy into a devastating point, but the true wonder is in its movement. A constant, flowing manipulation of the world's natural electrical grid. It is the jungle's own short circuit, a living embodiment of controlled chaos. Think of the ground beneath its paws. Every step it takes creates a magnetic pulse that pushes against the earth itself, allowing it to slide over the terrain with no friction. It is not running, it is gliding on a field of force. Every leap is a controlled electrical discharge that launches it like a true bolt of lightning along the path of least resistance. To witness Zeraora in a race is to witness an object surpassing the speed of sound, yet doing so without the telltale supersonic boom. Why? Because it manipulates the air around it. Magnetohydrodynamics. It creates a vacuum ahead of itself, a bubble of charged air, and then fills it with thunder. It is silent until it is deafening. This incredible ability has earned it the reputation as the lightning of the jungle, and its protective nature toward its habitat cannot be overstated. But the title is not merely one of fearful awe. Among the indigenous peoples of the regions it protects, there is a different understanding of Zeraora. It is known as a guardian. Zeraora is intensely territorial, but its territory is not defined by trees and rivers alone. It defines its domain by the balance of the ecosystem. It patrols the boundaries of its home, hunting down those who would upset the natural order with reckless abandon. Poachers, teams of corporate loggers, even rampaging Pokémon that threaten the delicate harmony of the jungle. Zeraora meets them with the full fury of a thunderstorm. Its protectiveness is absolute. There are tales of entire logging operations being dismantled in a single night, their heavy machinery fused by electricity, and their camp scattered for miles. The crews fled in terror, their minds haunted by the sight of a single, fast-moving pair of glowing eyes in the dark. In some stories, it is said that Zeraora can sense the intent of anyone who enters its domain. Those who come with respect to study or to simply pass through are allowed to travel unharmed, but those who carry greed or malice in their hearts find the very sky turning against them. The storms that brew when Zeraora is angered are not natural weather phenomena. They are the physical manifestation of its wrath. The thunder is its voice, and the lightning is its spear. So where does this power come from? It comes from its environment. Zeraora is a living testament to the power of symbiotic adaptation. It does not own its lightning. It borrows it from the sky, from the ground, from the very magnetic field of the planet. It is a filter for the raw, chaotic energy of a storm, channeling it into a focused, graceful, and terrifyingly fast form of life. It is not a god of thunder. It is the thunder's chosen vessel, bound to the jungles it protects. And when the storms pass, and the air grows still, Zeraora vanishes back into the deep green shadows, waiting for the next time its home is threatened, or the next time the sky calls out to it. Yet for all its speed and fury, Zeraora is a creature of the natural world. Its mysteries are rooted in the physics of a living planet. But what of a power that comes not from storms or biology, but from a substance so strange it defies the laws of creation entirely? What of a being whose very body is a mystery, born from a strange metal that can liquefy and reform at will? That is a story for another time, a tale of liquid metal and ancient technology. This brings us to our next chapter, Chapter 25, The Liquid Metal Mystery. The answers there are not found in the lightning of the jungle, but in the silent, flowing heart of a very different kind of life. The previous chapter closed with Zeraora, a creature that defied the very laws of biology by drawing power from the world around it. Rather than generating its own lightning, it was a puzzle of nature, a being that existed in a delicate balance with the magnetic fields and storms of its jungle home. And yet, for all its mystery, Zeraora was still a creature of flesh and blood, a living thing that breathed and hunted and slept. But there are other Pokémon that blur the line between the organic and the inorganic, between life and machine, and none do so quite as strangely as the one we turn to now. In the late autumn of 2018, a curious disturbance rippled through the Pokémon world. It began not in the tall grass of a remote route, not in the depths of a cave, but through the screens of millions of smartphones. Pokémon Go, the augmented reality game that had already redefined how people encountered these creatures, suddenly began reporting something odd. A new Pokémon, one never before seen in any main series game, was appearing in the wild, and it was made of liquid metal. Its name was Melton, and its arrival was unlike anything the Pokémon world had ever witnessed. The first sightings were fragmented, almost like static interference in a signal. Trainers reported strange, wriggling blobs of silver near Pokéstops, their bodies appearing to be composed of a single fluid nut of gleaming metal with a hexagonal nut for a head. They were small, barely a foot tall, and they moved with an unnerving, almost mechanical precision. But what truly set them apart was their behavior. Melton did not behave like a typical Pokémon, it behaved like a colony. When observed closely, Meltan exhibited what scientists later termed a colonial organism structure. Individual Meltan did not seem to possess a complete sense of self. Instead, they appeared to share collective consciousness, a sort of hive mind that allowed them to coordinate their movements and actions with startling efficiency. They would gather in swarms, dozens of them at a time, and they would consume metal. Not just any metal, but ferrous metals, iron, steel, and even the copper wiring in discarded electronics. They would swarm over a rusted bicycle or an abandoned car, and within hours, the object would be stripped clean, its metallic components absorbed into the collective mass of the Melton swarm. Their bodies would then grow denser, stronger, as if the metal was being reforged within them, strengthening their own forms from the inside out. It was as if they were not individual creatures at all, but cells of a single, larger organism. And that organism was hungry. But where had they come from? No trace of Melton existed in any fossil record, no mention in any ancient text, no carving on any forgotten temple wall. They were a complete anomaly, a species that seemed to have sprung into existence from nowhere. And yet, when researchers began to dig deeper, a curious pattern emerged. The very first Melton to appear in the modern world were all found in the Alola region, specifically on the islands themselves, often near sites of ancient volcanic activity or near deposits of a rare, peculiar ore known only as Melton candy. And this is where the mystery deepens, because the Alola region, as we know, is home to the Ultra Beasts, creatures from other dimensions. Could Melton be connected to them? Were they refugees from a different reality? The prevailing theory, pieced together from fragmented data and the whispers of old folk tales, suggests that Melton are not native to our world at all. They are, in fact, ancient beings, perhaps as old as the very metal they consume. Some legends speak of a primordial iron entity that slumbered deep within the earth, a being of molten metal that dreamed of forging itself into something greater. Over millennia, that entity began to fracture, its essence breaking into countless tiny shards, each one a sleeping Melton. They lay dormant, buried in the crust of the planet, waiting for a signal. And when that signal came, in the form of the massive electromagnetic energy generated by the global network of smartphones and data centers used by Pokémon Go, they awakened. The sudden burst of artificial energy, pulsing through the air like a heartbeat, was the call they had been waiting for. They emerged from the ground, drawn to the very devices that had summoned them, and so the mystery deepened. These creatures were not just consuming metal. They were consuming the infrastructure of the modern world. And with each piece of metal they absorbed, they grew closer to something else, something larger. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, a few Melton began to change. Their bodies, once fluid and singular, began to solidify. The hexagonal nut on their head began to twist and elongate, and those that consumed enough metal, that absorbed enough mass, began to merge. They would come together, dozens of them at a time, fusing into a single towering form. The liquid metal would swirl and churn, and then, with a final resonant clang, a new being would stand in their place, a being known as Melmetal. But that is a story for another chapter, one that follows the rebirth of an iron giant, and the final startling transformation that would forever alter the history of mythical Pokémon. The sudden appearance of Melton in the modern world, first spotted through the lens of Pokémon Go, was a puzzle that defied all known patterns. Here was a mythical Pokémon that behaved less like a singular entity and more like a colony, a swarm of liquid metal hexnuts that moved with a single hungry purpose. They consumed discarded steel, rusted machinery, even the iron in the soil itself, drawing it into their bodies and adding it to their own mass. For weeks, researchers observed them with a mixture of fascination and bewilderment. A mythical Pokémon that not only appeared in the wild through a mobile game, of all things, but one that showed a clear drive to gather, to fuse, to grow. The whispers started almost immediately. Could this be the first mythical that evolves? The answer came not from a digital event, but from the quietest corners of ancient lore, legends that predate the modern Pokédex, passed down through oral tradition in the remote highlands of the Galar region, spoke of a being that was not born, but forged, a creature of living iron that was worshipped as a god of metalworking by early human civilizations. They called it the Iron Giant, the Forge Master, the one who shapes the earth. And at the heart of that legend was a process that the Melton species was only now beginning to reveal. When enough Melton gather, and when they have consumed enough raw metal, a strange transformation begins. They do not simply level up or hold an item. No, the evolution of Melton into Melmetal is a physical and spiritual convergence. The individual hex nuts that make up a Melton's body begin to merge, to weld themselves together through some unknown alchemy. The central nut, the eye-like core, splits and multiplies, and the liquid metal hardens into a solid, colossal frame. Where there was once a swarm of tiny creatures, there is now one enormous, towering figure of molten iron and mystery. It is the only mythical Pokémon known to evolve, and the process is nothing short of a rebirth. You see, Melmetal is not simply a larger, stronger Meltan. It represents the culmination of a forgotten craft. In ancient times, before the age of machines, humans would offer their finest ores to the Melton colonies, hoping to appease them. If the colony accepted the offering, the Melton would merge, and from their combined mass, Melmetal would rise. It was considered a sacred event, a blessing from the god of the forge. The Iron Giant would then be guided to the most important structure of the village, a dam, a temple, a bridge, and with its immense strength, it would shape the metal with its own body. The legends say that Melmetal could cause iron to flow like water, bending beams and forging tools with nothing more than the heat of its presence. This is not mere myth. The physical capabilities of Melmetal are staggering. It stands over 8 feet tall and weighs nearly a ton, yet its body is not rigid. Its arms are cables of hex nuts that can rotate with incredible speed, generating centrifugal force that allows it to deliver devastating blows. The signature technique, known as double iron bash, unleashes a rapid-fire series of punches that build momentum with each rotation, striking with the force of a pile driver. But there is a deeper secret to this attack. When Melmetal spins its arms, it generates a powerful magnetic field. Trained observers have noted that it can actually bend the trajectory of its strikes mid-swing, guiding the metal cables like whips that are alive. It is a physical manifestation of its domain, metal in motion, obeying the will of the Forge God. What is truly remarkable is that Melmetal retains the same communal nature that defines Melton. Even after evolution, it does not forget the colony that birthed it. It continues to consume metal, but now it does so to purify and reshape its surroundings. In regions where Melmetal have been sighted, abandoned factories have been transformed into intricate, geometric sculptures. The Iron Giant does not destroy, it builds. It reforges the world in its image, one hexnut at a time. Yet for all its power, Melmetal remains one of the rarest of all mythical Pokémon. Its evolution requires an extraordinary event, a critical mass of Melton, a specific environmental trigger, and, according to some ancient texts, the willing sacrifice of the colony's individual will. Each Melton that joins the transformation ceases to exist as a separate being. They become part of a greater whole, a single consciousness forged from many. Some folklore holds that the first Melmetal was born when a star fell from the sky and melted a mountain of pure iron, and that every Melmetal since carries a fragment of that first celestial flame within its core. Now, as we watch the modern world's first documented Melmetal rise from a digital outbreak in Pokémon Go, we are witnessing the rebirth of a legend that has slumbered for millennia. The Iron Giant walks again, and the questions it leaves in its wake are as heavy as its fists. What else lies buried in the forgotten myths of our ancestors? What other ancient beings are waiting for the right moment to emerge from the shadows of history? The next chapter of this chronicle takes us deep into a different kind of wilderness, one where the trees are not shaped by metal, but by the untamed spirit of the forest itself, a being that has roamed for centuries, unseen and unbound. That story is called The Rogue of the Forest, and it begins with a howl that echoes through the canopy. The forging of Melmetal represented a pact between ancient humanity and raw, molten earth, a creation born from deliberate hands and the slow accumulation of time. It was a being of legends carved into metal. But the world of Pokémon is not solely defined by human artifice or cosmic origins. There are other legends that rise from the very soil, from the untamed heart of the wilderness itself. While Melmetal stood as a stone sentinel over civilizations long past, the forests of the Galar region were breeding a different kind of myth, one woven from living bark, Rest's energy, and the raw, unfiltered laws of the jungle. To understand this power, you must first understand the troop. Zarude is a creature defined by its pack. It is not a solitary wanderer by choice. Its entire existence is shaped by the unforgiving social hierarchy of a tree-dwelling troop. These troops are highly territorial, hostile to outsiders, and strictly ordered by dominance. The alpha male or female dictates movement, feeding grounds, and the safety of the group. Every Zarude knows its place, from the strongest enforcer at the top to the youngest scout at the fringes. This is a society built on strength and vigilance, where any sign of weakness can be exploited by a rival or a predator from another troop. Their roars echo through the canopy as a constant reminder of the boundaries that must not be crossed. Yet, within this rigid structure, there is room for a singular anomaly, a rogue element that defies the very nature of the species. This rogue is not a creature of weakness, but one of profound subversion. The story of the Dada Zarude is the central myth that redefines what this Pokémon truly is. Outcast or separated from the troop, a single Zarude discovered a human child, an infant cast into the jungle's heart, where the troop's law demanded hostility. This Zarude found something else. It subverted its own aggressive programming. The powerful vines that could drain the life from an opponent were instead used to cradle, to feed, and to teach. The Dada Zarude raised the boy Coco as his own. Every instinct to dominate was transformed into an instinct to protect. The child learned to move through the trees with the same fluid grace as his adoptive father. This bond challenges the fundamental understanding of the species. It proves that while Zarude is a fierce guardian of its territory, the territory itself is defined by who or what it loves. The Zarude troop represents the established order, the unchanging law of the jungle. But the Dada Zarude represents the quiet, powerful revolution of nurture over raw nature. Central to this duality is the unique biology of the Zarude. The vines that grow from its wrists are not merely weapons. They are an extension of the forest's own lifeblood. These vines pulse with a connection to the ecosystem. In the wild, they are used to swing from branch to branch, to bind prey, and to mark territory with potent pheromones. But they also hold a healing power. When the forest itself grows sick, when the life force of the jungle wanes, the vines of a Zarude can channel restorative energy. They can draw from the vitality of the tree of life itself. Or conversely, they can feed that energy back into the soil. The Dada Zarude used these vines to heal unimaginable wounds, both physical and spiritual. They are a conduit for the primal will of the forest. This link to vitality explains the Zarude's intense protectiveness. An injury to the forest is an injury to the Zarude. The health of the troop, the health of the territory, and the health of the Pokémon are one and the same. It is the embodiment of the forest's will to survive and flourish. Dynamic equilibrium of aggression and nurturing care. And so the rogue of the forest stands as a paradox. It is a creature of rigid social law that can become the most devoted of fathers. It is an instrument of harsh nature that wields the power of gentle healing. Its story is one of belonging, of finding a place in the world, whether that is within the strict hierarchy of a troop or in the quiet company of a single human child. The vines that bind the troop together can also lift a sapling toward the sun. The forest holds many secrets, and the Zarude guards them with a fierce beating heart. But as we drift deeper into the ancient wilds, a different kind of influence begins to stir. The power to bind is not always benevolent. Sometimes, the strings that connect living things are woven from something far darker, a poison that seeks not to heal or to protect, but to dominate the very spirit of life, twisting its host into a puppet for a will that is ancient, hungry, and utterly without mercy. From the story of Zarude, a creature that defied its own savage nature to raise a human child, we find a rare moment of hope in the mythical world. But not every legendary being is capable of such compassion. Some are driven by entirely different motives. Some crave control, and control is a poison, literally. In the region of Kitakami, a tale was told of three heroes, Okidogi, Munkidori, and Fazandipati. They were known as the Loyal Three, celebrated for protecting the land from a terrible ogre. But the truth, buried beneath centuries of folklore, is far more disturbing. These three were not heroes. They were puppets. And pulling their strings was a tiny, unassuming creature that had been hiding in plain sight all along. This creature is Pecorant, a mythical Pokémon from the deepest recesses of Area Zero. At first glance, it seems almost innocent. A peach-shaped shell, soft and round, with a face that could be mistaken for a smiling child. But that shell is a disguise, a mask, and beneath it lies a body of pure, concentrated poison. Pecorant is not merely poisonous by nature. It is a master of psychological control. Its poison takes the form of a substance it can produce at will, a toxic mochi, sticky, sweet, and devastatingly addictive. The mochi is Pecorant's greatest weapon. It does not simply harm the body, it alters the mind. When a human or a Pokémon consumes this mochi, they become bound to Pecorant's will. Their desires twist and warp, until the only thing that matters is serving the puppet master's agenda. And Pecorant used this mochi on the Loyal Three. It fed them the toxic substance, and in doing so, it turned them into enslaved champions. They believed they were acting on their own behalf, defending Kitakami, but every move they made was orchestrated by the creature inside the peach. The legend that grew around the Loyal Three painted them as noble protectors. They drove away the ogre, or so the story goes. But that ogre was likely another victim of Pecorant's manipulation. The entire conflict may have been nothing more than a staged performance, designed to give Pecorant a foothold in the region. When the time came for a challenger to uncover the truth, Pecorant retreated to its peach shell, feigning weakness, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. What makes Pecorant truly terrifying is how easy it is to underestimate. It is small, it appears fragile, a childlike voice and a cute face. But this is the same creature that has been linked to the ancient mysteries of Area Zero, the vast crater in Paldor where time and space seem to bend, the same region that gave rise to Paradox Pokémon. Creatures from beyond the normal flow of history. Pekarant's poison reaches back to that abyss. It is a fragment of something older, something that has always existed in the dark places of the world. The revelation of its true form comes when it abandons the peach shell entirely. That shell is not its body. It is a container, a manufactured cocoon that allows Pekarant to travel unnoticed. When the shell breaks open, what emerges is an amorphous entity of purple and black, dripping with venom, its eyes burning with ancient malice. It no longer pretends to be cute. It becomes what it always was, a puppet master, a toxic monarch ruling from the shadows. And yet, despite its power, Pekarant was never meant to be found in the wild. Like nearly all mythical Pokémon, its appearance in the world is a carefully managed event, a distribution, a fleeting moment of contact. This reinforces an ironic truth. Even Pekarant, a creature that thrives on control, is itself controlled by the very structure that brings it into our games. We receive it as a gift, not a discovery. We are told its story rather than living it. But that is changing. The way we encounter mythical Pokémon has evolved over the generations, from hidden glitches under trucks to online distributions, to full-fledged in-game quests. Each era brings a new method, a new way of delivering these rare beings to our hands. And as we look toward the future, the patterns of the past reveal something crucial. The evolution of the event is not complete. It continues to shift, just as Pekarant shifts its form. And in the next chapter, we will explore how the very concept of the mythical encounter has transformed from a secret to a spectacle. That story belongs to the evolution of the event. The mochi that Pekarant wove into the minds of Kitakami was not just a poison. It was a chain, binding will to purpose, turning friend into puppet. That same kind of invisible tether has always existed around mythical Pokémon themselves, though in a different form. Their presence has never been a matter of discovery, but of permission. Permission granted by a code, a ticket, a card handed out in a crowded mall. And as we trace the evolution of that permission, the very nature of what it means to be a mythical shift from myth into mechanism. Think back to the earliest days. Mew was a rumour, a glitch whispered among playgrounds, a shadow under a truck that never moved. The only way to truly obtain it was to attend a Nintendo Power event in 1999, or to trade with someone who had. That was the birth of the event, a physical pilgrimage. You had to be there, in that specific city, on that specific day. With your cartridge in hand, the Pokémon was not something you found. It was something you were given, and that gift came with a story, a memory of standing in line, of the smell of a convention centre, of the weight of a promotional card. That era stretched through Celebi in Japan, through Jirachi in movie theatres, through Deoxys at Target stores. The Pokémon Company created a ritual out of rarity. They turned the act of receiving a mythical into a shared cultural moment. But as the world grew smaller, as the internet connected every corner of the globe, the ritual evolved. The physical location faded, replaced by a digital one. Instead of a store, you entered a website. Instead of a clerk, you faced a screen. The distribution changed from a paper ticket to a serial code, from a cart to a Wi-Fi connection. This shift was gradual but seismic. When Wi-Fi distributions began in Generation 4 with event Pokémon like Darkrai and Shaymin, the barrier of geography collapsed. No longer did you need to live in New York or Tokyo. You just needed a signal. But with that collapse came a new kind of tension, the loss of scarcity. If anyone with an internet connection could download the same mythical, what made it special? The answer arrived in the form of a shimmer. Shiny mythical distributions were the next evolution of value. The first widely distributed shiny mythical was the shiny Pichu from the Pokémon Center in Tokyo in 2004. But the trend truly exploded in Generation 5 and 6. Shiny Dialga, shiny Palkia, shiny Giratina. These were given out at GameStop or through serial codes, their alternate coloration a mark of distinction. But the real impact came with shiny mythicals that were otherwise impossible to obtain in any other way. A shiny Mew from a Japanese event in 2005 is still one of the rarest Pokémon in existence. Its value not just in its stats, but in its impossibility. The shine told the story of the event itself, a story of attendance, of timing, of luck. And yet, the very act of distributing these shinies changed the meaning of rarity. When a shiny mythical is given to millions, how rare is it truly? The answer lies in perception. The Pokémon itself may be common in the digital wilds, but the memory of its distribution, the context of its arrival, remains unique. Each code is a fingerprint, each download a timestamp. The value of a shiny mythical is not in its code, but in the moment it was claimed. This brings us to the third and most profound shift. What was once a mystery, a hidden legend whispered in the margins of the Pokédex, has become a marketing cornerstone. The mythical status is no longer the result of cosmic birth or ancient creation. It is a strategic tool. When a new mythical is announced, it is not discovered in a cave. It is revealed in a trailer, bundled with a movie ticket, offered as a pre-order bonus for a new game. Pesherunt itself was not found by a trainer wandering Area Zero. It was unlocked through a DLC series, a chain of digital events tied to purchase. The mystery has been replaced by a calendar. The franchise has learned that the act of giving is as powerful as the act of finding. A mythical is no longer a secret to be uncovered. It is a gift to be anticipated. And that gift comes with expectations. A certain date, a certain code, a certain window of opportunity. The wonder is still there, but it is now orchestrated. The myth is made, not born. And so we arrive at a quiet truth. The evolution of the event is the evolution of the franchise itself. From physical gatherings to digital streams, from hidden mystery to planned spectacle, the mythical Pokémon have mirrored the journey of their trainers. From isolation to connection, from rumor to reality, the mochi of Pesherunt was a poison of control, but the codes of these events have been a kind of poison too. A sweet one that binds us to the story. Now, as we look ahead to the final chapter of this journey, we stand at the threshold of something older than any event, older than any distribution, a power that shaped the cosmos itself, that gave form to time and space, that lingers still in the legends of the Eight Firstborns. The next chapter, the legacy of the divine, will challenge everything we think we know about origin and purpose. Will you be ready to receive it? The evolution of the event changed how we connected with them. Physical tickets and trips to the store gave way to digital codes, a matter of knowing where to look and when to be online. At the moment of acquisition, whether tangible or virtual, always carried the same weight. That flicker on the screen, the data materializing from some server far away, it felt like a veil being pulled aside. You were not just getting a Pokémon, you were receiving an invitation into a deeper layer of the world. And it is that hierarchy, that hidden structure of the universe, that we find ourselves returning to now. What truly separates a mythical Pokémon from an ordinary one is not just its stats or its signature move, it is its place in the cosmic order. It is the story it tells about how the world was made and who or what holds the reins. At the very apex of this hierarchy sits the source, Arceus, the original one, the being that emerged from a state of absolute nothingness, a void devoid of time, space, or matter. In the emptiness, it shaped the first eggs of existence. From it came Dialga, the arbiter of time, Palkia, the warden of space, and Giratina, the ruler of antimatter, banished to the Distortion world for its violent nature. This was the first act of creation. But Arceus did not stop there. It created Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf, the late guardians, to serve as the emotional and intellectual conscience of the world, a failsafe against the overwhelming power of the creation trio. Beneath this divine council, the universe continued to unfold. Jirachi, one of the Eight Firstborn directly crafted by Arceus, slumbers in a meteorite, a wishing star that descends to Earth every 1,000 years. Deoxys, an alien from beyond the stars, was born from the distortions of Palkia's expanding universe, a cosmic traveller brought into being. These are the beings that stand at the gateway between the grand cosmos and the single planet. But the hierarchy has another branch, a branch that grows upward from humanity. We saw it with Genesect, a prehistoric Pokémon pulled from the grave and augmented with a cannon, its nature overwritten by technology. We saw it definitively with Majana, the artificial Pokémon. Created by a brilliant inventor in a forgotten kingdom, it was the first time humanity reached up and touched the divine spark, a soul given to a machine, fueled by the life force of a friend. Majana is a bridge not just between the artificial and the organic, but between the hubris and the heart of mankind. And then there is Pecorant, the newest link in this chain, born from a scheme, a poisoned mochi passed down through generations, a puppet master's curse. Its creation was a deliberate act of malice, a human weaponizing folklore into flesh. It represents the shadow that falls when the line between Pokémon and human intent blurs entirely. So the hierarchy is not just a list of the powerful, it is a chronology of the universe, from the creator to the created to the made. This brings us to the core truth about these 23 beings. They are not just collectibles, they are bridges. Every single one of them connects two different worlds. Mew is the bridge to the origin of all life, its DNA containing the blueprint for every Pokémon to come. It is the ancestor that whispers of a shared beginning, a genetic memory held in a single playful creature. Celebi is the bridge across time itself, a guardian of the forest that can heal wounds by rewriting history. Darkrai is the bridge into the subconscious, the realm of nightmares, a creature born directly from fear. Marshadow is the bridge between the living and the spirits of a forgotten war, hiding in the shadows of others, an echo of a conflict. 3,000 years quiet. Deoxys reaches across the void of space, a messenger from the unknowable dark. Majana stands between the cold efficiency of steel and the warmth of a soul. Melmetal, the Iron Giant, is a bridge from a forgotten age of metal worship into the digital age of Pokémon Go. Its very existence a reminder that the past can evolve into the present. Even Pecorant, in its toxic grip on Kitakami, serves as a bridge between the simple folktales of a region and the grim reality of its hidden history. They inhabit the liminal spaces. They are the exceptions that define the rules. Without them, the world of Pokémon would be just a world. With them, it is a universe where a child can bond with a god, where a machine can dream, and where an alien can befriend a human. It is this capacity to connect the mundane with the extraordinary that makes them so compelling. Why do these 23 beings continue to captivate us? Generation after generation, it is not simply their power, it is the mystery they embody. The rumour of Mew under the Trark, the secret event in a faraway city, the shiny Pokémon that only a handful of trainers in the world can claim. They are the living proof that you have not seen everything, that the Pokédex is never truly complete, that there are still secrets worth hunting for. They represent pure concept, victory in Victini, music in Meloetta, justice in Keldeo, abstract ideas given form and placed into your hands. They are the mythology of the Pokémon world made manifest, walking and battling by your side. And in every generation, just when we think the collection is finished, a new bridge appears, a new mystery, a new story waiting to be uncovered. The legacy of the divine is not a gavel striking down from on high, it is an ongoing conversation. Arceus created the universe, but the mythicals reveal its secrets, one event at a time. They are the chapter titles in the story of existence. From the very first whispers of Mew in the tall grass of Kanto, to the cosmic awakening of Arceus in the ancient past, to the human ingenuity of Morgana, to the poisonous scheming of Pecorant, the hierarchy is set, the bridges are crossed, and the wonder is yours to carry with you. We have traced the history of every single mythical Pokémon, from Mew to Arceus and beyond. We have seen the universe born, watched time take shape, and witnessed the birth of hope, fear, dreams and machines. The Pokédex entries have been read, the myths documented, the events passed into memory. But as you drift now, carrying these stories with you, remember that the world of Pokémon is vast, magical, and full of things yet unseen. The legacy of the divine is simply this, that the extraordinary is always just a little closer than you think. Good night. What did you think of this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this changed your perspective or taught you something new, consider subscribing for more mind-expanding content. And if you know someone who would find this as fascinating as you did, share it with them. These are the kind of conversations that matter.